Chapter 2231. The God-shocking bell carried a terrifying divine power, and it contained the divine power of the primordial spirit, as well as a fierce killing aura. It swept through the palace where Su Fang was cultivating, and even the array could not stop it. Puff! First, the clone that had merged with the chaotic world's heavenly way was instantly shattered, and his yang spirit also collapsed. Then, the clone that was refining the yin-yang true pole pill failed, and the chaotic energy almost shattered the divine cauldron. Su Fang's clone, who was controlling the divine cauldron, was forcibly interrupted. He staggered, and his qi and blood flowed backward. He spat out blood on the spot and fell into a state of serious injury. His original body and other clones were also seriously injured. Swoosh! Swoosh! His original body and all his clones appeared in the main hall. The shadow of Han Ji's primordial spirit descended again, and he shouted domineeringly, "Su Fang, everyone is cultivating hard, but you don't want to improve. I will definitely report to the higher-ups and punish you severely. I know I was wrong. Lord Han Ji, please give me another chance." Under Han Ji's divine power, Su Fang's original body gritted his teeth and bowed with trembling hands. The other clones all looked at the shadow of Han Ji's primordial spirit. One of the clones was secretly activating the divine sky playing wall to copy the entire process. Han Ji was a king god. Ordinary jade slips and divine weapons with the ability to record images could not record his image at all. They would quickly and automatically disappear afterward. The divine sky playing wall was different. It was a treasure born from the chaos before the world was created. Although it was only at the peak of the supreme grade, its ability was very strange. It could even copy the divine power of the heavenly way. Not to mention a king god, as long as Su Fang's cultivation was high enough, he could even copy every move of a venerable emperor. At this time, he was copying Han Ji's every move for his counterattack. You dare to offend the Luo clan. Just wait to be kicked out of the Yuan Tiangong. Be careful not to lose your life. The shadow of Han Ji's primordial spirit smiled coldly, showing disdain and pride, and then disappeared into the void. Do you think I, Su Fang, am a weakling that you can bully? Han Ji, I'll let you be proud for a few days. After the 10,000-year exam, I'll make you pay 10 times the price. Su Fang sneered domineeringly. Where was the subservient and servile manner from before? After Xing Wuji left, Su Fang had been constantly on guard against the cold plant. They had already suffered a great loss before, so how could they not be prepared? On the surface, Su Fang's injuries were more serious than the last time, but with his recovery ability, it was nothing. He didn't intend to find Emperor Sang Qiu or Emperor Wei Dao to support him. At worst, he would just reprimand Han Ji. Since he wanted to take revenge, he had to return it 10 times over. He had to make Han Ji pay a sufficient price. Once again, Su Fang entered the array space in the depths of the palace. After making some arrangements, he continued to recover and cultivate. At the same time, he also continued to refine pills. About 3,000 years had passed in the formation space, which was equivalent to 300 years outside. In the alchemy room, Su Fang sucked a ball of spiritual dew into the divine cauldron. With a whoosh, a white fragrance rose from the inside of the divine cauldron. Grabbing at the air, a grayish-white pill shot out from the inside of the divine cauldron and was caught by Su Fang. Yin-Yang True Pole Pill, and it's a high-grade Yin-Yang True Pole Pill. It's really not easy. After so many years of repeated refinement and countless failures, I've finally raised the quality of the Yin-Yang True Pole Pill to high grade. Su Fang was overjoyed. His face was full of smiles. He carefully sized up the Yin-Yang True Pole Pill. It was different from the True Pole Pill. The True Pole Pill was milky white, but the Yin-Yang True Pole Pill that Su Fang refined was grayish-white. It looked like a pill that had been stored for many years and had lost its medicinal power. However, this pill was covered with fine and mysterious traces of the heavenly Tao from the inside out. It exuded the aura of heaven and earth, and was actually somewhat similar to the aura of the Creation Saint pill. However, there was definitely a huge gap between it and the Creation Saint pill. Let's test the medicinal power. Su Fang swallowed a yin-yang true pole pill. In an instant, before the pill entered his stomach, it immediately melted and quickly fused into his flesh, bones, meridians, and Tao palace. After a few breaths, the medicinal power exploded in his body. The power of yin and yang and the other medicinal powers fused together to form the power of creation. It crazily swept through his body, causing his blood qi and energy to boil as if they were burning. His entire divine body and Tao palace were trembling. The world tree absorbed the medicinal power, causing the power of the world of yin and yang to rapidly increase. Among the medicinal power, there was also a primordial spirit flame sweeping through. His divine aperture was also trembling violently, causing his yang spirit to begin self-cultivation. When his body calmed down, Su Fang was pleasantly surprised to find that this high-grade pill had increased his strength a little. Although it was not that obvious, the effect was at least equivalent to 3 years of cultivation. With Su Fang's current cultivation, a high-grade pill could actually have such an effect. Even a peak supreme-grade pill was slightly inferior. Although the yin-yang true pole pill was extraordinary, it was not considered a top-grade pill. However, Su Fang had fused the power of yin and yang, and had also made slight adjustments to the pill formula, causing the yin-yang true pole pill to become extremely extraordinary. The difference between the yin-yang true pole pill and the true pole pill was that at the same time, it was also the most powerful thing about the yin-yang true pole pill. It could transform one's divine essence into the power of yin and yang, causing the power of an immortal to become purer and deeper. The yin-yang true pole pill is of great help to the cultivation of immortals below the Tao integration realm. It also has a certain effect on the cultivation of Tao integration realm experts and above. However, the cultivation of powerful late-stage Tao integration realm experts is more focused on comprehending and controlling the heavenly Tao. The effects of external forces are secondary. Therefore, the yin-yang true pole pill is not very attractive to them. It is very useful for the cultivation of the big goblin. The immortals under me also need the yin-yang true pole pill for their cultivation. I can nurture alchemists and produce a large number of yin-yang true pole pills. However, Su Fang's main focus now was on earning points. With points, he could exchange for more good things to rapidly improve his strength and condense the yang meridian. Su Fang began to concentrate on refining the yin-yang true pole pill. At the same time, he tried to continue improving the quality of the yin-yang true pole pill. In the deepest part of the heavenly realm, a figure stood in the air with his hands behind his back. It was Han Ji, one of the 3 supreme masters of the earthly realm dojo. His eyes flickered as Su Fang's every move in the dojo appeared. Refining pills? Han Ji was stunned when he saw Su Fang refining pills. Then, he sneered disdainfully. It seems that you plan to rely on refining pills to earn points. If you can't complete the basic tasks of the 10,000 spell pagoda within 10,000 years, you won't be able to maintain your status as an earthly realm genius even if you can refine the Creation Saint pill. He continued watching. Su Fang left an avatar floating in the air to merge with the heavenly Tao of the elemental world and comprehend the heavenly Tao. His original body was left in the array space of a room. Seeing that Su Fang's original body's vitality was incomparably empty and his aura was weak, it was obvious that he had been severely injured by the God-shocking bell. It would be difficult for him to recover. In such a state, even if you use the rest of the time to recover, you won't be able to reach your peak state, let alone complete the tasks of the 10,000 spell pagoda. The only result is that you will be kicked out of the earthly realm dojo. Han Ji smiled coldly. Then, He formed a seal and his palms bloomed with Xian Guang, condensing the shadow of Luo Xingtian's primordial spirit. Luo Xingtian was a little impatient. Lord Hanji, how did things go? Young Master Xingtian, don't worry. I have handled things properly. Su Fang definitely won't have the strength to pass the test of the 10,000 spell pagoda. That's good. When Su Fang is kicked out of the Earthly Realm dojo, I will definitely thank you. I am now in the divinity arena and will soon compete with others. I won't talk much with you. Pay attention to Su Fang. You can't be careless. Leave everything to me. Su Fang won't be able to make any big wave. Young Master Xingtian, don't worry. After ending the communication with Luo Xingtian, Han Ji would carefully sense Su Fang every 100 years. The result was just as he expected. Although Su Fang was constantly recovering, the speed was very slow. At this rate, it was impossible for him to completely recover before the 10,000-year small test. It was also impossible for him to pass the 22nd floor of the 10,000 spell pagoda and complete the most basic task. Han Ji would never have expected that the scene he saw was completely different from the reality. It turned out that in another room, Su Fang activated the life-shrinking technique rune, completely concealing his body and the surroundings. Even a master god like Han Ji couldn't see any clues. What Han Ji saw was Su Fang's state when he was injured was replicated by the divine sky projecting wall, and then projected into the room through the divine power of the divine sky projecting wall. At the same time, Su Fang cooperated with the mysterious solution of heaven's divination ability to disrupt the mysteries of heaven and covered the room with divine power, deceiving Han Ji's senses. It was also because Han Ji was careless. He was a high and mighty master god, while Su Fang was only a 9th heaven divine venerable. He never thought that Su Fang would have such a heaven-defying ability. If he checked it himself, he might be able to see the flaw. 3,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Su Fang's clone went to the Alpha Hall several times to exchange yin-yang true pole pills for points, and then bought a large amount of alchemy materials. This repeated several times, like a rolling snowball. A large number of yin-yang true pole pills were refined. The yin-yang true pole pills' extraordinary medicinal power was equivalent to the points exchanged for ordinary supreme-grade pills in the Alpha Hall. 3,000 years. In the formation space created by the power of time, 30,000 years had passed. Apart from the purchase of materials and the expenditure of divine stones needed to maintain the formation of the power of time, in addition to the yin-yang true pole elixir that he had given to Xian Lingzi and the others, Su Fang's merit points had reached an astonishing 200,000 through refining the yin-yang true pole elixir. Su Fang was equivalent to completely getting rid of poverty. Even if he couldn't be considered a nouveau riche, he had a small fortune. On this day, Chapter 2232, Yuan Tiangong had a small test every 10,000 years, and half of the time had passed. In order to not be demoted, complete the basic mission, and earn more points to become famous in Yuan Tiangong, many geniuses gave it their all. Shocking news continued to spread, causing waves of commotion. First, Yi Luoyang successfully broke through to the peak of the 9th heaven of the Supreme God realm and stepped into the Tao integration realm. Moreover, when he was at the Tao integration realm, the heavenly Tao avatar that he formed unleashed a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth. It actually suppressed the power of the Divine Sun in Yuan Tiangong by more than one level. Yi Luoyang's heavenly Tao avatar had just been formed, and it already had such power. How shocking would it be if it was raised to the level of a domain lord or even a lord god? People concluded that Yi Luoyang would definitely be able to enter the top 10 in the small test and enter the heavenly dojos. QL11 Luo Xingtian's performance was also very shocking. He swept through the divine battle arena in Yuan Tiangong, which was specially used for gambling battles. There was almost no one who could match him. Not only did he become famous, but he also won countless points, and his wealth skyrocketed. As for the other heavenly dojos, their performances were also very shocking. Qi Mian, Xuanxin, Shifeng, Tianbao, Qiangang, Geng Zhao, and other geniuses passed through the 10,000 spell pagoda one after another. Although they were not as shocking as Goddess Luo and Di Yuan, they were still looked up to by many geniuses. Di Yuan fell into silence. It was said that he was in seclusion to comprehend a supreme divine power. Chu Bingyan, who was ranked behind Goddess Luo in the test, also shone brightly. He followed everlasting life to the Tianlan star ocean to suppress the demon race. He was besieged by more than 10 demon race experts whose strength was comparable to a domain lord, but he managed to kill his way out of the encirclement and even severely injured a demon race expert. When the news spread back to Yuan Tiangong, it instantly caused a huge commotion. Chu Bingyan's fame even surpassed Goddess Luo and was chasing after Di Yuan. However, less than 100 years later, there was news that Goddess Luo had been cultivating in the Bodhi Grotto heaven in the Yuan Tiangong mystic realm for 2,000 years. After coming out of seclusion, she accepted a mission at the heavenly pivot hall and charged into a great realm that was surrounded by resurrected powerful beings. She killed a resurrected big goblin whose strength had reached the 8th heaven of the Tao integration stage and saved countless cultivators in that great realm. This news shocked the higher-ups of Yuan Tiangong. The performance of so many geniuses was so dazzling. People were surprised to find that Su Fang seemed to have completely disappeared from Yuan Tiangong. Not to mention accepting a mission, he didn't even go to the 10,000 spell pagoda once. People speculated one after another that Su Fang had been punished by being demoted to the earth realm Tao right. His Tao heart had been damaged, and he had completely sunk into depravity. Regarding Su Fang's performance, some people felt pity, some were angry, and some were extremely pleased. Especially Luo Xingtian. Of course, he knew the inside story and concluded that Su Fang couldn't even complete the basic mission. He would definitely win 100,000 points this time. Naturally, he was proud and happy. On this day, Xuanxin ended her secluded cultivation and came to the Divine Pivot Hall, ready to accept a mission. Accepting missions was the fastest way to earn merit points. Since there was the word merit in merit points, it meant that one had to protect the human race, kill the Devil Clan, the Big Goblin, and revive the powerhouses in exchange for merit points. As soon as Xuanxin walked into the side hall where missions were issued, the noisy main hall suddenly quieted down. Xuanxin's peerless appearance, as well as her cold and holy temperament, attracted the attention of all the immortals. She is the genius of the Divine Phoenix ancient clan, Phoenix Xuanxin of the heavenly realm Tao right. If I could talk to such a peerless woman, I would die without regret. I heard that Phoenix Xuanxin and Su Fang have become Tao companions. What a pity! A fresh flower stuck in cow dung. Su Fang is nothing. He was so outstanding during the entrance test, but now he has become a nobody. How can such a good-for-nothing be worthy of Phoenix Xuanxin? Not only Phoenix Xuanxin, but even Goddess Luo is Su Fang's Tao companion. I really don't know what women are thinking these days. They all like good-for-nothings who live off women. Some of the immortals secretly communicated with their thoughts, while others whispered and mocked Su Fang. Phoenix Xuanxin, an extraordinary genius in a black robe, strode toward Xuanxin. It was Chu Bingyan, the genius of the heavenly realm Tao right, who had been in the limelight recently. Chu Bingyan, what's the matter? Xuanxin nodded and asked. Although both of them were in the heavenly realm Tao right, they had never interacted with each other before. However, they still had to show courtesy. Chu Bingyan asked, "What's wrong with Su Fang? Why does he keep sinking?" Su Fang is doing well now. Thank you for your concern, Brother Chu. Xuanxin revealed a smile. Everyone was mocking Su Fang, but Chu Bingyan came to show concern for Su Fang. This made her have a better impression of Chu Bingyan. She often contacted Su Fang and understood Su Fang's situation. Naturally, she wasn't worried about anything. Chu Bingyan said, "That's good. It's just a small setback. It definitely won't be able to suppress Su Fang." At this moment, a voice full of mockery came from outside the side hall. Why did I hear that ever since Su Fang made a bet with Luo Xingtian, he didn't dare to show himself again? This kind of good-for-nothing who ascended from the outside world only knows how to play to the gallery. A man walked in from outside the hall. It was Duanmu Renjie, who had crossed swords with Chu Bingyan during the entrance test. Xuanxin's eyes exploded with coldness. "Duanmu Renjie, if it wasn't for Su Fang being punished, how would you be qualified to enter the Heavenly Realm dojo?" Chu Bingyan said sternly, "You only have your current achievements because of the Duanmu clan. What qualifications do you have to mock Su Fang?" Duanmu Renjie smiled casually and said, "Phoenix Xuanxin, Luo Xingtian and Su Fang made a bet. Why don't we make a bet too? If Su Fang loses to Luo Xingtian, then you will dual cultivate with me for 10,000 years. If Su Fang wins, then I will kowtow to him directly. How about it?" An ice phoenix's image appeared from Xuanxin's divine body. A divine might that could freeze heaven and earth engulfed the main hall. The huge palace hall was quickly covered in a layer of ice. Duanmu Renjie chuckled. "It's fine if you don't dare to make a bet. Why are you so angry? I know I can't defeat you, so I won't cross swords with you. Haha. Su Fang only knows how to rely on women." At this moment, a strange tremor caused everyone to feel that they had lost their connection with the heavenly Tao. Then, everything returned to normal. While everyone was still feeling surprised, the tokens of some geniuses suddenly started to vibrate one after another. One of the geniuses took out his token and looked at it. Then, he exclaimed, "A heavenly omen has appeared in Yuan Tiangong." Yuan Tiangong was a universe created by the joint efforts of venerable sovereigns. If a heavenly omen appeared, it would either be due to the birth of a precious treasure or due to someone cultivating a supreme divine ability that caused the heavenly omen. The possibility of the first scenario was obviously very small. It was definitely due to someone cultivating and causing the heavenly omen. Moreover, it was most likely a venerable sovereign. Many geniuses activated their tokens and left Dubhe Hall, appearing in Yuan Tiangong. Xuanxin, Chu Bingyan, and Duanmu Renjie also left Dubhe Hall. The three of them were all geniuses from Heaven Realm cultivation arenas. After leaving Dubhe Hall, they automatically returned to their respective cultivation arenas in Heaven Realm. As soon as they appeared in their respective cultivation arenas, they immediately felt a terrifying heavenly aura enveloping Yuan Tiangong. At the highest point in the sky, the boundless dome of the palace was revealed. The vast galaxy was actually rotating at a speed visible to the naked eye, forming a huge vortex. It gave people the feeling that the entire Yuan Tiangong was being stirred up. The energy fluctuations between heaven and earth became abnormal. Even the heavenly Tao laws in Yuan Tiangong became abnormally active. However, they were not chaotic. In the galaxy vortex, tribulation clouds began to brew. Heaven and earth instantly darkened. The natural aura of heaven and earth suddenly became heavy and oppressive. It was almost suffocating. Someone is undergoing a tribulation. A great tribulation covering the entire Yuan Tiangong. Could it be that an over-god realm master is advancing to the venerable sovereign realm? No, the heavenly tribulation for advancing to the venerable sovereign realm is far more terrifying than this one. However, it can't cover such a large area. Countless deities witnessed this heavenly omen phenomenon, and they were all inexplicably shocked. The venerable sovereigns were also alarmed. They separated their primordial spirits to check the heavenly omen. The power of the heavenly tribulation is equivalent to the strength of a first heaven Tao integration realm true God. Could it be that someone is advancing to the Tao integration realm? To advance to the Tao integration realm, one must first integrate with the heavenly Tao, then undergo the heavenly tribulation to cleanse one's marrow. Could it be that a genius is undergoing the heavenly tribulation after integrating with the Tao? It's not Di Yuan. Before Di Yuan entered the Yuan Tiangong, he had already integrated with the Tao. Then, he settled down for 1,000 years. Not long after entering the Yuan Tiangong, he underwent the heavenly tribulation to cleanse his marrow. When he integrated with the Tao, he caused a phenomenon. Even the celestial worthy mountain appeared. However, when he underwent the heavenly tribulation to cleanse his marrow and divine body, nothing happened. Such a shocking heavenly omen puzzled the venerable sovereigns. They projected their sensing power to find the source of the heavenly tribulation. At the Earth Realm cultivation arena, the sovereigns of the three sovereigns appeared together and looked at the great desolate continent. A figure rose up into the sky. He then stood with his hands behind his back and looked up at the sky. He was like the king of heaven and earth. A supreme domineering aura rose from him. Su Fang. The one who caused the heavenly omen is actually Su Fang? Wasn't he seriously injured? Apart from refining pills, he has been recovering all this time? Han Ji's head buzzed. His eyes were filled with disbelief. This brat dared to deceive me. He really deserves to die. Han Ji came to a realization. He immediately felt incomparably furious and humiliated by being deceived. He couldn't help but fly out. He actually planned to interfere with Su Fang when Su Fang was undergoing the heavenly tribulation. Go back. A cold shout came from the void. It exploded in Han Ji's mind. Then, a heavenly Tao divine aura swept out. The overgod was like a weak chicken at this moment. He was directly swept back to his original spot without any resistance. Han Ji was terrified and shocked. How could such a big commotion not attract the attention of the venerable sovereigns? I was indeed a little impulsive. Fortunately, I didn't directly attack. What should I do next? Rumble. The heavenly tribulation clouds that had been brewing for a long time tumbled and boiled. Thunder tore through the heavenly tribulation clouds and rapidly rushed towards Su Fang. In an instant it descended on Su Fang's head. Too weak. Chapter 2233. Su Fang easily shattered the first heavenly tribulation, and he didn't even need to form a seal. The many experts who were able to witness this scene were all shocked. However, the emperors didn't pay much attention to it. After all, Su Fang had already reached the Tao integration realm. The heavenly tribulation he was facing now was only at the first heaven of the Tao integration realm. It posed no threat to him at all. What surprised the emperors was why Su Fang's heavenly tribulation had attracted such a shocking heavenly omen. Even a Lord God's breakthrough to the emperor realm would not cause such a huge commotion. After shattering the first heavenly tribulation, Su Fang used his divine power to absorb the shattered tribulation lightning and tribulation fire into the heaven and earth Tao Palace. Not only did he want to use the tribulation power to refine his divine body like a divine artifact, but more importantly, he wanted to guide the tribulation power into the heaven and earth Tao Palace to cultivate the world tree and fuse the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda with the Pagoda divine artifact. With a few sizzling sounds, Su Fang's Taoist robe was reduced to ashes by the terrifying tribulation power. He sealed the ancestral dragon armor and allowed the tribulation power to seep into his body to refine it. His entire body was enveloped by lightning and thunder fire. His skin was burned by the thunder fire, and there were holes everywhere. He looked bloody. It was a shocking sight. He released the power of yin and yang to fuse with the tribulation power that had already been tainted by his blood. Then, he used the tribulation power to refine his body. He sucked the other part into the heaven and earth Tao Palace and let the world tree absorb a portion. The rest was guided to the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda and the Pagoda divine artifact with his mind. Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, Pagoda divine artifact. Among the treasures that Su Fang cared about the most, the mixed Yuan saint ranked first. The other was the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda. Even the heaven-concealing star flag, a semi-divine artifact, couldn't compare to it. Later, Mo Tiangong had refined a natal divine artifact for him. It was also a pagoda-shaped treasure, and he had kept it in his inner world for many years to nourish it. He had long planned to fuse the two treasures into a natal divine artifact. This time, he could take advantage of his advancement to fuse the two treasures into one. Boom! The two magic treasures that had been activated by Su Fang into their natal state were now violently struck by the power of the heavenly tribulation. The two magic treasures shook violently and made cracking sounds. Fine cracks had appeared on the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda's pagoda. The same was true for the pagoda divine artifact. However, it looked slightly better than the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda. Su Fang didn't care about anything. He wanted to use the power of the heavenly tribulation to cleanse the two treasures and then merge them into one. As long as the formation inside didn't collapse, everything would be under Su Fang's control. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The second heavenly tribulation came one after another, and it was even more terrifying than the first. However, the second heavenly tribulation was obviously different from the first heavenly tribulation. It was also different from the heavenly tribulations that the other gods had to go through. The Emperor Masters who were paying attention to Su Fang's tribulation cried out in surprise. They had already seen some clues. Although the momentum of the second heavenly tribulation was astonishing, the will of the heavenly way contained within it was somewhat strange. When other gods went through their tribulations, the will of the heavenly way contained the will of destruction, which prevented the gods from becoming stronger. If they couldn't shake the heavenly tribulation, they would be obliterated by it. However, the second heavenly tribulation that Su Fang attracted contained the will of the heavenly way. It was a kind of test and tempering. Although its power was much stronger than that of other gods of the same level, it didn't contain a trace of killing intent or destructive intent. If it weren't for the Emperor Master's powerful strength and extremely sensitive perception of the heavenly way, as well as the fact that the Yuan Tiangong was created by them and they could clearly sense the will of the heavenly way in the Yuan Tiangong, it would be difficult for them to see any clues. Some of the Emperor Masters vaguely recalled that Su Fang seemed to have caused some strange changes when he merged with the heavenly way. However, they couldn't recall what exactly it was. That memory had been erased by some mysterious force. These Emperor Masters were shocked and immediately realized something. Fear surged in their hearts and they stopped guessing. Just like before, Su Fang still didn't form any seals. He used the power of the yin-yang world to shatter the two heavenly tribulations. Then, he used the power of the heavenly tribulations to temper his divine body and cultivate the world tree. The Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda and the Pagoda Divine Artifact also shattered and melted in the power of the heavenly tribulation. However, they didn't collapse, and the arrays inside were also intact. Tut tut tut. The 9 heavenly tribulations came one after another. When it came to the 6th heavenly tribulation, Su Fang had no choice but to form seals and use the Kai Tian seal to shatter the heavenly tribulations. Although it wasn't as easy as before, it wasn't too difficult either. The 7th heavenly tribulation became even more violent. Heaven and earth shook and the sun and moon dimmed. Seeing this scene, the Emperor Masters were secretly amazed. This heavenly tribulation wasn't just the power of the heavenly way, but also the general momentum of the heavenly way. It could crush all obstacles. Such a terrifying heavenly tribulation had already surpassed the limit of the power of the heavenly tribulation when ordinary gods broke through to the Tao integration realm. It was at the same level as the attack of a mid-stage Tao integration realm master. Ordinary gods wouldn't be able to withstand it. Su Fang's expression also became serious. He activated the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace and projected the power of the yin-yang world to the outside world, quickly forming a universe. Boom boom boom. Su Fang's world shook violently under the violent attack of the heavenly tribulation. Layer by layer, it collapsed. Finally, the terrifying heavenly tribulation was resolved, but Su Fang's world was also shattered. Su Fang staggered, and his aura became weak. After stabilizing his body, he once again absorbed the shattered heavenly lightning and heavenly fire into his body. Su Fang's divine body was shattered, and his divine body trembled in pain. However, his eyes were still resolute. The inside of his body was constantly being damaged and destroyed by the power of the heavenly tribulation. It was constantly being repaired, reborn, and then transformed. In the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace, the power of the heavenly tribulation bombarded the world tree. It trembled and swayed, emitting a bright light and abundant vitality. QL11 on a branch, a flower bud quickly formed and then bloomed with the power of the heavenly tribulation. Lightning flashed. Under the power of the heavenly tribulation, the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda and the Pagoda Divine Artifact had already turned from material to liquid, then from liquid to smoke. Finally, they completely transformed into a mysterious state of nothingness. As the array inside the divine artifact was still intact, the two divine artifacts did not dissipate. Merge. Su Fang released his will, and at the same time, the purple Qi Dharma spirit also released its divine power. Borrowing the power of the heavenly tribulation, the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda and the Pagoda Divine Artifact quickly merged into one. Next was the eighth tribulation. Su Fang had no choice but to release his heavenly Tao Dharma idol. Su Fang separated three yang spirits and quickly merged them into the fruit of the Dharma idol tree. First, a monstrous wave, carrying the divine power of the heavenly Tao that engulfed the heavens and the earth, collided with the surging heavenly tribulation and reduced its momentum by half. Then, a terrifying flame soared into the sky. The flames dyed the sky red, and the divine sun in the sky dimmed. By the time the fire elemental power of the heavenly Tao Dharma idol was completely exhausted, the power of the heavenly tribulation had been reduced to less than 1/3. At this time, the fruit of the Dharma idol tree transformed into a 30-foot-tall divine being wearing bronze armor. He held a long spear in his hand and rode a war horse. With an unstoppable momentum, he pierced through the sky and charged forward. The eighth tribulation was completely defeated. The remaining power of the heavenly tribulation was used by Su Fang to cultivate his divine body and the world tree, and to merge the two magic treasures. Rumble. After a long period of preparation, 9 waves of thunder formed by the power of the heavenly tribulation rushed down from the sky. At this time, the power of the heavenly tribulation had already surpassed the mid-stage of the Tao integration realm and even that of an ordinary area lord. It had reached the 9th heaven of the Tao integration realm. The last tribulation is so terrifying. Su Fang was shocked and didn't dare to be careless. He peeled off a beam of yang spirit and quickly merged it with the black and white fruit at the top of the Dharma idol tree. A huge black and white yin-yang pattern rolled out. A yin-yang divine power that could split the heavens and earth and destroy all things, combined with the power of the world in Su Fang's body, suddenly erupted. Boom, boom, boom. It was like 2 different heavenly Taos colliding. Fortunately, in a short while, the 9 heavenly tribulations were shattered. Su Fang's Dharma idol tree also dimmed and was absorbed by Su Fang's divine power. Just when Su Fang thought that everything was over, buzz, buzz, buzz. Just when Su Fang thought that the heavenly tribulation was over, a buzzing sound came from the void. In an instant, heaven and earth resonated, and all things resonated. Shadows appeared around Su Fang. The sun, moon, stars, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, mountains, rivers, and other natural phenomena of heaven and earth appeared around him, forming a scene of heaven and earth. Not only that, the Dharma idols of the 3 supreme masters in the Earth Realm Dojo appeared uncontrollably from their bodies, trembling as they faced Su Fang, as if they were worshipping him. The geniuses of the Earth realm, and even all the gods in the Yuan Tiangong, unconsciously bowed and lowered their heads in the direction of the Earth realm dojo under the urging of the will of the Heavenly Way. The Heavenly Way congratulates, all things resonate and all Daos worship. The great way that Su Fong cultivates is so extraordinary. The Emperor Masters who saw this scene in secret were all shocked and in disbelief. The great way that Su Fong cultivates has already formed its own heavenly way, resonating with the heavenly way of the Yuan Tiangong. This boy's future achievements are limitless. The Supreme Master of the Imperial People's joyful voice reached the ears of all the Emperor Masters. Heaven and earth are changing continuously, and the next change is less than 10 million years away. There won't be any room for him to grow. What a pity! The celestial worthy mountain has opened, and this boy is the only one who can enter it. The future of the human clan in the three realms may be reversed by him. The Emperor Masters secretly communicated with each other in a strange way. Some were full of hope for Su Fong, while others were sighing with regret. Today's matter is not to be spread. Seal it. The Supreme Master of the Imperial People said casually. An invisible force was born in the Yuan Tiangong world, quickly erasing the matter of Su Fong's advancement from all the gods' memories. Although the Emperor Masters retained their memories, once they spoke of this matter, there was an invisible force that would stop them. At the same time, it would be noticed by the Supreme Master of the Imperial People. Chapter 2234. Not long after Su Fong shattered the ninefold heavenly tribulation, multicolored light shot out from the thick tribulation clouds, making them look extremely dazzling. The aura of the rolling tribulation clouds was no longer the terrifying heavenly might or evil aura, but a peaceful aura. Whoosh! A spiritual light descended from the sky and landed on Su Fong's body. Su Fong immediately retracted his defenses and opened up his divine body, divine aperture, and heaven and earth Tao palace. He allowed the baptism power of the heavenly tribulation to cleanse his entire body. A burst of tribulation fire quickly burned Su Fong's body. The power of ascension exploded in Su Fong's body and swept through his divine body. At this moment, Su Fong finally transformed from the divine venerable realm to the Tao integration realm. His divine body, yang spirit, and heaven and earth Tao palace seemed to have shattered. The immense pain made Su Fong tremble all over, but his heart was filled with excitement and joy. The heaven and earth Tao palace was also transforming, including the two natal magic treasures that had just merged. Under the baptism of the baptism power, they quickly turned from an illusory state to a physical state. After about 10 days, the power of ascension finally calmed down. Su Fong's heaven and earth Tao palace suddenly erupted with a heaven-defying aura and a burst of flames. When the flames dissipated, Su Fong, who seemed to have been reborn from the ashes, was already very different from before. The wounds on his body were gone, and he looked full of energy, exuding a sacred, mysterious, and transcendent aura. The changes in his body were even more shocking. His divine body had become more perfect, and each of them contained boundless vitality and the mysterious aura of the yin-yang world. His divine aperture had also clearly become more vast, and his sea of dermic powers had become deeper. His yang spirit had become more real, as if Su Fong was sitting cross-legged on the sea of dermic powers. The energy space in his body formed by the world tree, yang meridian, and meridians had become even more vast, 10 times that of the divine venerable realm. After being tempered by the heavenly tribulation and baptized by the chaotic power, every leaf of the world tree emitted a dazzling spiritual light. He condensed the heavenly Tao Dharma to take a look. The fruits hanging from the branches grew even bigger, and the aura of the great Tao became even more intense. The 3 fruits were activated in order to deal with the heavenly tribulation. Because they were consumed, they had to condense into flower buds again. Su Fong needed to continuously inject the power of yin and yang in the world and mana in order to slowly recover. It would take about 10,000 years before it could be used again. Those flower buds that had yet to bloom had obviously become much fuller. Moreover, on one of the branches, there was a new fruit that was surrounded by strands of silver lightning. It gave off a shocking heavenly tribulation aura, as if it contained a ball of heavenly lightning. Once it exploded, it would destroy all worlds. Then, he looked at the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda and the pagoda. The two natal magic treasures had already fused completely at this moment, turning into a single magic treasure. It condensed into a 10-zhang tall pagoda, shrouded in a pure yang light. Its aura was extraordinary, and it faintly emitted an aura of heaven and earth. I'll continue to nourish the pagoda in my inner world for a period of time, and it will grow together with my world. It might become the first divine creation artifact born in my inner world. Su Fang's thoughts moved, and the pagoda hid in the depths of the heaven and earth Tao Palace. It constantly absorbed the power of yin and yang and vitality of Su Fang's world. At the same time, Su Fang used various materials to continuously modify the internal array. It would not take long for it to be effective. Su Fang was also surprised to see that in the heaven and earth Tao Palace, as well as inside and outside his physical body, a new heavenly scar had condensed in his divine aperture. At first glance, it did not look much different from an ordinary heavenly scar. However, upon closer inspection, he realized that the heavenly scar contained endless mysteries of the heavenly Tao. Moreover, these heavenly scars did not come from the heavenly Tao, but from his own universe. Su Fang came to a sudden realization. Other gods harmonize with the heavenly Tao and harmonize with the outside world. However, I harmonize with my own heavenly Tao. Therefore, the heavenly scar is different from other gods. After advancing to the Tao integration realm, Su Fang felt empty all over. This was mainly due to the fact that his divine body and heaven and earth Tao Palace had become even more vast after advancing from the godly venerable realm to the Tao integration realm. Naturally, he needed more energy. Looking at Han Ji in the distance, Su Fang realized that after advancing to the Tao integration realm, his perfected ability had also evolved. Not only did it increase the range of his senses, but it could also sense the distance of space. After harmonizing with the heavenly Tao, gods could borrow the power of the heavenly Tao to sense heaven and earth. Su Fang had a perfected physical body, and his senses were more than 10 times stronger than ordinary Tao integration realm cultivators. If he borrowed the purple cloud Dharma spirit and the heaven prying eye, Su Fang could see through all the mysteries of heaven and earth. Su Fang clearly saw the shocked expression on Han Ji's face. He sneered coldly, and his eyes were filled with mockery. Then, Su Fang returned to the palace. "Brat, how dare you mock me?" Anger burned in Han Ji's heart. He actually deceived me and succeeded in the Tao integration realm. He even caused such a huge commotion. What happened just now? Why can't I recall it? Han Ji was shocked to find that he could not recall what had happened when Su Fang was undergoing the tribulation. He only remembered that Su Fang had successfully passed the tribulation and advanced to the Tao integration realm. As soon as Su Fang returned to his room in the palace and entered the formation, he immediately used the mysterious solution of heaven's divination. Together with the formation, he disrupted the heavenly secrets in the room, making it difficult for Han Ji to sense what was inside. Su Fang thought to himself, "I caused such a huge commotion when I advanced just now. It will definitely attract the attention of a venerable emperor. No matter how arrogant Han Ji is, he won't dare to harm me again." However, he did not know that the heavenly omen caused by his advancement had indeed attracted the attention of a venerable emperor. However, the peerless existence of the imperial people had sealed their mouth. The gods below the venerable emperor level did not remember anything about the heavenly omen phenomenon at all. Han Ji was the same, so he was not afraid of it. Just as he was about to swallow a pill to recover, Venerable Emperor Sangqiu's voice came from the void. Su Fang, this venerable emperor has come to visit. Don't tell me you don't welcome me? Venerable Emperor Only Dao's voice followed. This venerable emperor is here too. As soon as his voice fell, the illusory figures of Venerable Emperor Sangqiu and Venerable Emperor Only Dao appeared from the void and immediately condensed into real existences. He did not expect that two venerable emperors would come at the same time. Su Fang hurriedly bowed. Greetings, venerable emperors. No need to be so polite. Venerable Emperor Sangqiu said. A divine might made it difficult for Su Fang to bow. Venerable Emperor Sangqiu and Venerable Emperor Only Dao sat down cross-legged in the room, like two ordinary people who had never cultivated before. However, Su Fang did not dare to sit down. He stood respectfully and tried to guess the purpose of the two's visit. Venerable Emperor Sangqiu said majestically, Su Fang, you were punished because of Luo Changkong's matter. This venerable emperor did not fight for anything for you, causing you to be demoted to the Earth Realm Training Hall. Do you have any complaints? Su Fang replied, This is the tempering that venerable emperor gave me. I can't thank you enough, so how can I have any complaints? As expected of the genius that this venerable emperor values. Your talent, luck, scheming, and willpower are all so extraordinary. Your future achievements will be limitless, Venerable Emperor Sangqiu said with a nod. Venerable Emperor Only Dao said, Su Fang, this venerable emperor and Sangqiu have come here specifically to warn you. This breakthrough to the Dao integration stage caused a heavenly omen that shook the entire Yuan Tiangong. Fortunately, Venerable Emperor personally took action and erased the heavenly omen. He even sealed the mouth of the Venerable Emperor. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Seeing Su Fang's confusion, Venerable Emperor Sangqiu said, At this time, the myriad worlds are in chaos. Not only are there resurrected powerhouses, but the demon race and some evil existences that were previously hidden in the world of darkness are also infiltrating the divine realm. Your breakthrough this time will definitely attract the attention of the demon race and other evil existences. They will quickly get rid of you. Su Fang was shocked and stunned. He did not expect that this breakthrough would have such terrible consequences. Venerable Emperor Only Dao continued, You probably don't understand. You cultivate the supreme heavenly Dao and coexist with the heavenly Dao. If you reach the peak, you might even reach the legendary height and transcend heaven and earth. A scorching light flashed in the depths of Venerable Emperor Only Dao's eyes. Su Fang was shocked again. Venerable Emperor Only Dao laughed. Do you think this Venerable Emperor covets your cultivation technique? Venerable Emperor Sangqiu chuckled. You don't have to worry about powerhouses harming you. You cultivate the supreme heavenly Dao and this is your own great Dao. Now that you have reached the Dao integration stage, even if a powerhouse tries to seize your body, they won't be able to take away your great Dao. Every venerable emperor has their own great Dao and it is impossible for them to cultivate someone else's great Dao from the beginning. Even if they take everything from you, they won't be able to help themselves. Su Fang finally felt relieved. Just as Su Fang was conversing with Venerable Emperor Sangqiu and Venerable Emperor Only Dao, Han Ji once again sent out his sensing power and finally discovered that the heavenly Dao in the palace Su Fang was in had been disturbed, making it difficult for him to sense the situation inside. Strange, I don't know what kind of divine ability or magic treasure Su Fang has to be able to disturb the heavenly Dao. This must be the reason why I was deceived by him and couldn't recall the scene of his tribulation. Han Ji was shocked. He attributed being deceived by Su Fang and being unable to recall the process of Su Fang's tribulation to Su Fang using a supreme divine ability or magic treasure to disturb the heavenly Dao. If he defeats young Lord Luo in the 10,000 spell pagoda, even if young Lord Luo doesn't blame me, the Luo clan will definitely be disappointed and lose their backing. Taking advantage of the fact that Su Fang has just undergone his tribulation and is in a weak state, I'll disturb his cultivation and make him unable to challenge the 10,000 spell pagoda. Han Ji's eyes flashed with ruthlessness as he slowly flew towards Su Fang's training ground. After the other two Earth Realm training ground sovereigns left, Han Ji stepped into the air above Su Fang's training ground and then used a supreme divine ability to isolate Su Fang's training ground from the outside world. Inside the palace, Venerable Emperor Sangqiu continued, "Stay in the Earth Realm training ground for the time being. It's also a kind of training for you. In the end, you'll become a peerless expert. I won't help you in the competition between the geniuses of the same generation. If an expert bullies you, it'll be beyond your ability." At that time, before he could finish, clang! A loud and clear sound of a bell came from outside. The bell contained a terrifying power that could penetrate the formation and shake the primordial spirit. QL 11 God Shocking Bell. Chapter 2235. Above Su Fang's dojo, Han Ji stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked down at the palace and shouted coldly, "Su Fang, it's already more than half of the 10,000-year trial. Why haven't you entered the 10,000 spell pagoda yet?" However, after a while, there was no response from Su Fang from the palace. Could it be that he was disturbed by the god's alarm bell and fainted? Han Ji guessed. Immediately, Han Ji exuded a fierce aura and shouted angrily again, "Su Fang, I'm asking you a question. Come out and answer me." At this time, Su Fang's cold voice came from the palace. "I just advanced and am recovering. I don't have time to greet Lord Han Ji. Lord, please go back." Presumptuous! How can a lowly disciple like you be so arrogant in my dojo? Han Ji was furious. He took a step forward and came to the palace. The array created by Su Fang was broken layer by layer under Han Ji's aura. Han Ji appeared directly inside the array. "Today, I'll let you know what will happen if you go against me." Emperor Sangqiu, Emperor Only Dao, why are you here? Han Ji's whole body was covered in ice. He was shivering and almost couldn't stand. There was a loud bang in his head. There was only one thought in his mind: "I've kicked an iron plate this time." Emperor Sangqiu said indifferently, "The imperial people joined forces with many emperors to create the Yuan Tiangong. It's to cultivate geniuses to deal with the apocalypse. The Earth Realm is second only to the Heaven Realm. It cultivates peerless geniuses. You're just a king god. How dare you treat the Earth Realm dojo as your territory and act so wantonly?" Emperor Only Dao said coldly, "You dojos are responsible for supervising the cultivation of geniuses. When did the geniuses of the Earth Realm dojo become targets for you to bully?" Han Ji braced himself and answered, I'm worried that Su Fang will neglect his cultivation. That's why I used the god's alarm bell to warn Su Fang." "I don't mean anything else," Sovereign Sangqiu snorted coldly. "How dare you quibble in front of this sovereign?" Han Ji felt as if the hand of the heavenly Tao had pressed down on his chest. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His bones were shattered and he knelt on the ground. His divine body was shattered and blood splashed everywhere. Cram! Only Dao Emperor waved his hand and unleashed a wave of divine might that swept the cold plant out of the palace. Poof! Han Ji opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. His aura became dispirited and his face was covered with a layer of deathly gray. He looked very frightening. Although he was lucky enough to survive this time, his vitality was greatly damaged. Without 1,000,000 years of bitter cultivation, it would be very difficult for him to recover to his previous state. He knew very well that the reason why Emperor Sangqiu and Emperor Only Dao didn't kill him wasn't because they didn't dare to, but because they didn't want to. Although he was an over-god expert, in the eyes of the Supreme Emperors, he was no different from an ant. He was just a slightly bigger ant. Killing him was just a matter of thought, and no one would stand up for him after the matter was over. He hurried to take the pellets to mend his broken god body. He didn't say anything as he returned to the training hall. He gritted his teeth. Su Feng, you dared to set a trap for me. You've humiliated me like this. I must kill you. Emperor Sangqiu and Emperor Only Dao. Han Ji naturally didn't dare to hold grudges against them. Instead, he vented all his hatred and anger on Su Feng. Inside Su Feng's training hall, Sovereign Sangqiu said, Su Feng, you have already stepped into the Dao integration realm. After the Dao integration realm, every step of your cultivation will be difficult. Moreover, the great Dao that you cultivate is something that no one before you can learn from. You will have to rely on yourself and your own efforts. A clown like Han Ji will definitely not dare to find trouble with you in the future. This emperor will leave him alive for you. When you have enough strength, you can take revenge if you have a grudge. Emperor Only Dao chuckled and then disappeared into nothingness with Emperor Sangqiu. Han Ji, you got lucky this time. I am not strong enough now, so I have to rely on the protection of the Supreme Emperors. When I have enough strength, I will definitely take revenge, just like Emperor Only Dao said. Su Feng's heart surged with a fierce aura. If it weren't for Emperor Sangqiu and Emperor Only Dao, he would have been disturbed by Han Ji again. He had just broken through. If his cultivation was interrupted again, the consequences would be unimaginable. How could he not be filled with killing intent toward Han Ji? Su Feng reconstructed the formation in his room. He then ignored Han Ji and focused all his energy on devouring pills. He wanted to reach the first heavenly stage of the Dao integration realm as soon as possible. After forming the seal, Su Feng's body collapsed layer by layer, transforming into the falling blood dome state. The 10 creation saint pills fell into the blood water and quickly melted, turning into medicinal power that merged with the blood water. In the blink of an eye, nearly 10,000 years had passed in the formation space. 10,000 years was nothing to ordinary gods. However, compared to Su Feng's 200,000 years of cultivation, it was an extremely long time. After such a long period of cultivation and consuming all the creation saint pills, Su Feng finally reached the first heavenly stage of the Dao integration realm. Su Feng found that after reaching the Dao integration realm, it became more difficult to cultivate the world tree. His cultivation level was no longer as fast as before. The main reason was that the world in his body was too vast. The amount of energy required was naturally astonishing. The rejection of pills was also one of the reasons. Fortunately, Su Feng had refined a large number of yin-yang true pole pills over the years, which were of great help to his cultivation. Otherwise, 10,000 years would not be enough for Su Feng to cultivate to the normal state. In 10,000 years, Su Feng had gradually improved the quality of yin-yang true pole pills to the peak of the high grade. It would not be long before he could refine the supreme grade yin-yang true pole pills. Su Feng used the yin-yang true pole pills to exchange for a large number of points, which were all exchanged for cultivation resources. Apart from his own cultivation resources, the rest were distributed to Xianlingzi, Qinyu, Bai Ling, and the others who lived in the Yellow Realm Dao field. After 10,000 years of cultivation, the Heavenly Secret Life Shrinking Technique, Heavenly Mystery Solution, Ethereal Truth, and other cultivation methods and magical powers had improved a lot. In particular, his self-created Mediating Destiny Technique, Kai Tian Seal, De Yen Seal, and Heavenly Dao Appearance had improved a lot. The natal magic weapon that was nurtured in the Heaven and Earth Dao Palace was also constantly growing. At the same time, it also consumed Su Fengda's yin-yang energy and vitality. This was also one of the reasons why Su Feng's growth was slow. It could not be helped. The growth of a natal magic weapon was a long and exhausting process. However, once it grew, its power was incomparably shocking. Long Niao, Gui Gui, and prehistoric inflammation were also constantly growing in these years. Long Niao had the biggest change. Before entering the Yuan Tiangong, it had swallowed a large amount of Shaoyang divine sun energy. After so many years of cultivation, its strength had long surpassed the ordinary peak hierarch experts. Unfortunately, Su Fang did not have the opportunity to test Long Niao's strength at this time. The 71st meridian that had been breaking through was about to condense into a Yang meridian, but it still required luck. There were many spiritual items of heaven and earth that were greatly helpful in condensing a Yang meridian in the divine pivot hall. However, these spiritual items easily cost hundreds of thousands of points, which Su Fang could not afford for the time being. Another 1,000 years had passed in the Yuan Tiangong. There were less than 3,000 years before the time limit of the small test. Su Fang finally reached the peak first firmament of the Tao integration stage. However, the 71st meridian did not move for a long time. He had further integrated with the origin sacred mirror. At this time, Su Fang could already understand many of the ancient mirror's secrets from inside the origin sacred mirror. At the same time, his understanding of the 9 Yang 9 changes and the Yin Yang change became more profound. On this day, Su Fang left his original body in the dojo to cultivate. A clone prepared to leave the Earth Realm dojo and head to the Divine Pivot Hall to exchange the Yin Yang True Pole Elixir for merit point. Then, he would exchange them for spiritual items and break through to the second firmament of the Tao integration stage. At the same time, he would also break through the 71st meridian. Buzz. A rune talisman deep in his body moved. It turned out to be Xianlingzi's voice. Su Fang, Qingyu and Bai Ling accepted a mission at the Divine Pivot Hall. They left the Yellow Realm dojo and went to a dangerous place to look for spiritual items. Although Qingyu and Bai Ling were big goblin, they also had tokens. Therefore, like the Yuan Tiangong geniuses, they could also accept missions to earn points. Su Fang was very surprised. Did I not give them enough resources? Why do they have to go out and take risks? There was a moment of silence. Xianlingzi's voice came again from the rune talisman. In these years, many Yellow Realm geniuses came to find trouble. Qingyu and Bai Ling had many conflicts with them. The Heaven Punishers of the Yellow Realm Tao right once again sided with those Yellow Realm geniuses. Thus, they lost quite a lot of points to enter the Yellow Realm Tao right. The two of them were very depressed in the Yellow Realm Tao right. Thus, they decided to go out and experience the world. Su Fang's eyes exuded traces of coldness. Xianlingzi and the others lived in the Yellow Realm dojo. With Su Fang in the Earth Realm dojo, such a thing had never happened before. Those Yellow Realm geniuses jumped out at this time. It was very obvious that they were instructed by someone. Su Fang speculated that it was either Luo Xingtian or Yi Luoyang. Sanskrit was also possible. He even suspected that even the Heaven Punisher of the Yellow Realm dojo could be instructed by someone behind the scenes. Let them be for now. Bear with it for a while. It won't be long before I make them give back 10 times the amount of points they took from me. Su Fang ended the conversation with Xianlingzi and put away the rune talisman. His eyes became colder and colder. Let these clowns be for now? For a while. Wait for them to be for a while? Enough. I, Su Fang, will make you pay a heavy price. Using the token, Su Fang came to the Divine Pivot Hall. Isn't this Su Fang? I heard that when he was advancing to the Tao integration realm, he almost failed and was seriously injured. He hasn't shown up for a long time. He hasn't entered the 10,000 spell pagoda yet. Don't tell me that he can't even complete the basic task of 10,000 years in the end? Isn't there a saying that a man's talent has run out? It's talking about geniuses like him. Among the Yuan Tiangong geniuses, there were very few who didn't know Su Fang. Seeing Su Fang now, there was a lot of discussion. Su Fang had been quiet since he entered the Earth Realm dojo. Compared to geniuses like Di Yuan, Goddess Luo, and Yi Luoyang, he could be described as unknown. Chapter 2236. With Su Fang's perfect hearing, he could even hear the sound of a fly flying thousands of miles away. Moreover, the people in the hall didn't intend to avoid him, so he could hear their discussions clearly. Su Fang's expression was calm, and his eyes were as calm as an ancient well. His Taoist heart was originally firm, and after the unification of Tao, he had reached a state where his heart was unmoved by external things. Even if a star fell in front of him, he wouldn't blink, let alone some rumors. Entering the depths of the hall, Su Fang found something strange. Today, there were many alchemists with strong medicinal auras coming in and out of the side hall that specialized in selling elixirs. All of them were in high spirits and beaming with joy. Su Fang was a little surprised. Using his perfect hearing, he quickly figured out what was going on. It turned out that the Yuan Tiangong was preparing to build the Pill Pagoda and the Artifact Hall to recruit alchemy and treasure refining geniuses from the Yuan Tiangong and the outside world. The Pill Pagoda was naturally a place to refine elixirs, and the Artifact Hall was a place to refine magic treasures. Whether it was elixirs or magic treasures, every immortal couldn't live without them. The Yuan Tiangong was the last refuge for the human race to guard against the apocalypse. At the same time, it was also to cultivate geniuses to deal with the apocalypse. Since elixirs and magic treasures were so important to immortals, it was imperative that the Yuan Tiangong set up the Pill Pagoda and the Artifact Hall. From the mouths of those alchemists, the news that Su Fang learned made him feel extremely excited, and his eyes lit up. Why was this? It turned out that in order to attract real alchemy and treasure refining geniuses, the Yuan Tiangong decided to hold a competition for alchemy and treasure refining geniuses during the 10,000 years trial, and select the geniuses to enter the Pill Pagoda and the Artifact Hall. Not only the Yuan Tiangong geniuses, but all the geniuses who weren't qualified to enter the Yuan Tiangong could participate. At that time, it would definitely be a grand event for the young alchemists and treasure-refining geniuses from all over the universe. What made Su Fang envious was the rewards for this selection event. The top 3 in the alchemy and treasure-refining genius selection pageant would be given the identity of a heavenly realm dojo genius and enjoy the same treatment. As long as the geniuses who had entered Yuan Tiangong's 4 realms were selected by the Pill Tower and the Artifact Hall, they would be promoted to a higher realm. Geniuses who came from the outside world would receive different statuses and treatments according to their rankings. The champion of the alchemy and weapon refinement selections would receive either a medicinal cauldron or a weapon cauldron, as well as a bountiful reward that would make even overgods envious, as well as 100,000 merit points. Su Fang did not care about status or treatment. With his current strength, he was confident that he could enter the heavenly realm Tao right at any time. In addition, in Su Fang's opinion, although alchemy and artifact forging were important, they were all auxiliary. One's own strength was always the most important. What tempted Su Fang was naturally the extremely generous reward. If you have enough energy and time, go and participate in the selection of pill refiners and treasure refiners. Half-creation medicinal cauldrons, weapon cauldrons, and 100,000 merit points. Thinking of the bountiful rewards, Su Fang's heart burned with passion. The only problem was Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. With his status, he would definitely appear when the time came. With him around, it was almost impossible for Su Fang to obtain a ranking. After arriving at the place where pills were purchased, Su Fang walked through the array door and arrived at a shop after passing through the array. Manager Du exchange for pills. In the past, Su Fang had been selling his yin-yang true polarity elixirs here to exchange for merit points. He was already familiar with the manager and took out his storage ring. Manager Du was a bald, middle-aged man with a big belly. His cultivation was not high, only at the 3rd heaven of godly venerable realm. However, he was an alchemist and had an extraordinary status. Your Highness Su Fang, I'm sorry this time, but I can't accept your pills. Manager Du, who had always been amiable to Su Fang and even tried to curry favor with him, suddenly changed into a different person. His face was gloomy and stern. Su Fong raised his eyebrows. Manager Du, why is that? Manager Du snorted. Your Highness Su Fong, after the true polarity elixir you sold last time, a few people got sick after eating it. One of them was a genius from the mysterious realm training hall. The higher-ups have issued orders to conduct a strict investigation. How can this steward dare to accept your pills? How can my pills be eaten by bad people? Su Fong realized that things were not that simple. He did not sell ordinary true polarity elixirs, but yin-yang true polarity elixirs. However, they were all middle-grade elixirs. He kept the higher-grade ones for his own cultivation and distributed them to his subordinates in the Yellow Realm Training Hall and the Hunyuan Heaven Realm. Although they were middle-grade elixirs, how could yin-yang true polarity elixirs be ordinary? Su Fong's elixirs had been all the rage among the middle-grade and low-grade geniuses and other gods in Yuan Tiangong over the years. They were in short supply and had never encountered any problems. Now that people suddenly got sick after eating it, there was naturally a problem. After thinking for a moment, Su Fong sneered. Is it the Duanmu Divine Clan? The Duanmu Divine Clan that Duanmu Renjia belonged to was an ancient divine clan in the ancient divine world. They mainly cultivated the great Tao of wood and were good at refining elixirs. In all the realms, the Duanmu Divine Clan's elixirs were said to be second. No one would dare to say that they were first. Among the Duanmu Divine Clan, there were many grandmasters in alchemy. The Duanmu Divine Clan was in charge of the elixirs in the Duanmu Divine Hall. The person in charge of the alchemist selection was also a grandmaster from the Duanmu Divine Clan. QL11 Although Su Fong did not have any direct conflict with Duanmu Renjia had always been hostile to Su Fong. Now that something like this suddenly happened, Su Fong naturally thought of Duanmu Renjia. Manager Du chuckled and did not answer Su Fong. However, his expression relaxed. Your Highness Su Fong, the elixirs you refined are indeed extraordinary. However, I have to obey the orders of the higher-ups. It's not that I want to make things difficult for you, but I can't do anything about it. Not only me, but all the shops in the Duanmu Divine Hall that sell elixirs do not dare to accept your elixirs. Manager Du said slowly with a look of deep sympathy for Su Fong. I understand. Su Fong kept the storage ring and was about to leave the shop. Manager Du suddenly said, Your Highness Su Fong, let me give you a reminder. Although the Duanmu Divine Hall does not dare to accept your elixirs, outside. Haha, just pretend that I did not say anything. Outside? Su Fong's heart skipped a beat. He understood what Manager Du meant. According to the Yuan Tiangong law, the elixirs and divine weapons refined by the Yuan Tiangong geniuses could only be traded in the Duanmu Divine Hall and exchanged for merit points. However, no matter how strict the law was, there were places where it could not be controlled. Many geniuses who could not earn merit points and had no access to good cultivation resources would think of ways to resell elixirs and divine weapons in private to earn merit points. As long as they were not caught, the Yuan Tiangong would turn a blind eye to it. Trading privately is not necessarily a bad idea. Su Fong thought to himself as he passed through the array. As Su Fong left, the smile on Manager Du's face vanished without a trace. Instead, a ruthless and smug light flashed in the depths of his eyes. As long as you go and make a private transaction, a heaven punisher will immediately appear. Then, just wait for Primordius' heavenly palace to severely punish you. Humph, no matter how talented you are, you have offended young Master Duanmu and so many ancient divine clans and powerful forces. You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Su Fong left the Duanmu Divine Hall and went to the market outside. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just as he was about to find a buyer to sell the yin-yang true pole elixir in his hands, a sensing force suddenly swept past him, causing the Fate Dao scripture of the life shrinking technique to flash rapidly. Su Fong did not pay much attention to it at first. In the Duanmu Divine Hall, there were all kinds of people coming and going. It was normal for someone to sense it. Before he could take more than a few steps, a young man on the street sneakily looked around and walked towards him. The young man transmitted his yuan spirit to Su Fang. "Friend, do you have any elixirs or divine weapons? I will buy them at a high price." Just as Su Fang was about to reply, a few more senses landed on his body. One of them contained the exact same aura as the one from before. Su Fang immediately came to his senses. "It's a trap. As long as I make a deal with this young man, a heaven punisher from Yuan Tiangong will immediately appear. If I'm caught making a deal in private, the consequences will be unimaginable. Manager Du is actually scheming against me." He came to a realization and immediately laughed coldly. He shouted loudly, "Where are the heaven punishers? This person has violated the Yuan Tiangong law and made a deal in private. Why aren't you capturing him?" Everyone in the market looked over. The young man's expression changed instantly. Su Fang laughed coldly and embarrassedly. He shouted loudly again and attracted the attention of many gods. After a while, 3 heaven punishers appeared. One of them was a master god. Su Fang laughed coldly in his heart and slowly told them what had happened. The 3 heaven punishers did not look too good. They asked a few more questions and took the young man away. Manager Du must have been instructed by Duanmu Renjie to set up such a trap in order to frame me. How despicable! Su Fang's heart surged with a fierce aura. He activated the token and left the Duanmu Divine Hall. He returned to the training hall. Because of the Heavenly Fire Divine Lord, the path of earning points from refining weapons has been cut off. Now, the path of refining pills has been cut off by Duanmu Renjie. Do you really think that I, Su Fang, am a pushover that you can bully? Su Fang revealed a domineering smile. His eyes were filled with killing intent. I'll bear with it for a while. When the time comes, I'll give you the fiercest counterattack. Su Fang thought for a while and made a decision in his heart. After this, he would no longer rely on refining pills and refining weapons to earn points. He had earned quite a lot of points in the past few years. There were also many high-grade resources in the Golden Rainbow King's treasure. In addition to the Yin-Yang True Pole elixir that he had refined, it would not be a problem for him to sustain his cultivation for 100,000 years. As for Duanmu Renjie and Luo Xingtian, these clowns, he would let them do whatever they wanted for now. But now, the higher they climbed, the worse they would fall. Han Ji had learned his lesson last time. He would not dare to disturb him even if he had 10 gut. He could concentrate on his cultivation and accumulate experience before he could make a breakthrough. Chapter 2237. About 1,000 years. It was getting closer and closer to the 10,000-year test. On this day, Su Fang suddenly flew out of the array formation and arrived at the main hall of the palace. He retracted all his clones that were refining pills and comprehending the primordial world's heavenly Tao outside and merged with his main body. Just as he finished doing this, Su Fang's body trembled and a wave of tribulation aura shot out from his body. In the next moment, the tribulation fire burned crazily. He used the illusory fire cloud and 9 yang divine fire to merge with the tribulation fire, turning into a sea of flames that enveloped Su Fang from the inside out and burned him. The flames were extremely shocking, as if they were smelting a divine artifact. A large amount of impurities surged out of his body, emitting a familiar stench. They were quickly burned to ashes by the tribulation fire. The impact of the advancement power swept through his body, and his meridians, bones, and flesh were forcefully torn apart. In this painful transformation, Su Fang's body became stronger, more perfect, and more profound. About 3 months later. Only then did the tribulation fire gradually fade. Su Fang seemed to have been tempered and felt like he had been reborn from the fire. He looked a little younger, and his eyes were boundless and deep, as if they contained the universe. The changes in his divine body and the power of the great perfection stage were obvious. The power of the great perfection stage was almost beyond the limits of heaven and earth. After merging with the heavenly Tao, he projected his sensing ability, and the barrier of space and distance almost no longer existed. However, Su Fang was still some distance away from those supreme existences who could sense a star field with a single thought. Looking at the heaven and earth Tao Palace, the world tree had clearly become more vigorous and vigorous. The power of yin and yang in the world had also become more vast. The heaven and earth Tao Palace also appeared more profound and vast. The divine sun and divine sun hanging high in the heaven and earth Tao Palace also appeared brighter. The power of the sun and the power of the moon seemed purer. Su Fang activated the power of yin and yang in the world. He discovered that the speed at which the world tree absorbed energy had increased once again. His cultivation speed would definitely be much faster in the future. However, it was definitely far from the cultivation speed before the Tao integration stage. Putting aside his cultivation realm, Su Fang was now in harmony with his own heavenly Tao. What he cultivated was the universe, so the amount of energy he needed was terrifying. Naturally, his speed of improvement would slow down. However, this did not mean that his strength was not increasing fast enough. At this moment, Su Fang's strength increased by one small step was comparable to the increase of 2 or 3 steps for other Tao integration stage experts. There's not much time left before the 10,000-year mini-exam. I should first stabilize my cultivation base at the second heaven of the Tao integration stage. Then, I'll try my best to condense the 71st Yang meridian. Su Fang returned to his previous state of cultivation. Another 500 years passed. Cultivation knew no time. Su Fang had been cultivating for nearly 5,000 years inside the array space created by the great Tao of time. On this day, Su Fang suddenly walked out of the palace and came to the square in front of the palace. There was a smile in his eyes that came from the bottom of his heart. After a while, 2 figures flew over. They were Xuanxin and Goddess Luo. In Yuan Tiangong, geniuses from high-ranking dojos could go to low-ranking dojos, but geniuses from low-ranking dojos could not go to high-ranking dojos. Xuanxin and Goddess Luo came to Su Fang's dojo at the same time. Naturally, they did not violate the rules of Yuan Tiangong. After entering Primordius' heavenly palace, everyone faced a tremendous pressure. This pressure came from other geniuses, but more so from themselves. Yuan Tiangong could be said to be a place where the best cultivation resources in the universe were gathered. Everyone had the opportunity to obtain them, but they had to rely on their own efforts. None of the geniuses who could enter Yuan Tiangong were people who would just sit around and wait for death. Naturally, they would do their best to obtain more and better resources. Xuanxin and Goddess Luo were no exception. Goddess Luo was mysterious and unfathomable. Even Su Fang did not know her true background. He did not even know her purpose in entering Yuan Tiangong. Ever since she entered Yuan Tiangong, she rarely contacted Su Fang. Xuanxin seized every opportunity to cultivate and then gain experience. She did not want to be left too far behind by Su Fang, nor did she want to be compared to Su Fang. Therefore, she rarely saw Su Fang. After entering Yuan Tiangong, she only saw him a few times at Tianshu. At this moment, the 2 of them came together, which surprised Su Fang. Su Fang pulled each of them with one hand and entered the palace. Goddess Luo carefully sized up Su Fang. Shock flashed in her deep eyes. She said, "You have not shown yourself for a long time. People outside have been talking about you. We thought you had sunk into depression. Xuanxin and I heard about it, so we came to see you. Now, it seems that not only are you fine, but your strength has also increased greatly. We are relieved." Xuanxin said calmly, "I have said it before. Even if the world is destroyed, I will not let Su Fang sink into depression. The one who knows me best is Xuanxin." Su Fang chuckled. He relaxed when he was with his 2 companions. Although they did not ask about each other's well-being, there was concern in their conversation. It was filled with love. Then, Goddess Luo and Xuanxin took out a storage ring at the same time and rolled it towards Su Fang. Then, the two of them looked at each other. Although they did not say anything, their eyes were filled with competition. They both wanted to win Su Fang's favor. Women were like that. Su Fang's head hurt a little. He separated the two consciousnesses and entered the storage ring. He could not help but be shocked. There was a flame sealed in Goddess Luo's storage ring. It was the divine sunfire that Su Fang had seen before. The divine sunfire was a flame formed by refining the power of the divine sun. Not only did it contain shocking fire elemental essence, it also contained unparalleled pure yang power. In Alpha Hall, a cluster of divine sunfire like this cost 200,000 merit points. Su Fang had long wanted to buy it to cultivate and condense the 71st Yang Meridian. However, it was too expensive. He could only look at it enviously. In the past, Su Fang had earned quite a lot of merit points by selling Yin Yang True Extreme Pill. Although he could afford 200,000 merit points, he could not bear to buy it. After all, he still had to cultivate. In addition, he had so many subordinates who needed to consume resources. He did not expect Goddess Luo to give him a cluster of divine sun fire. It was a timely gift. Su Fang's eyes lit up. His expression fell into Goddess Luo's eyes, and Goddess Luo's eyes were filled with smiles. Xuanxin's eyes dimmed. The item she gave Su Fang was also extraordinary. However, in terms of value, it was far inferior to the divine sunfire. QL11 Su Fang asked, "The divine sunfire is extremely valuable. Where did you get so many merit points?" Goddess Luo said, "I took on a mission in Alpha Hall and killed some resurrected experts. I obtained a lot of points." She was afraid that Su Fang would not accept it because of his pride. She continued, "It's not for free. You have to return it to me in the future." Su Fang chuckled and kept the storage ring in his palm. Goddess Luo said it casually. How could it be easy to kill a resurrected expert when they were out training? Goddess Luo had risked her life to obtain the 200,000 merit point. Although Su Fang did not say it, he was very touched. He looked at the storage ring that Xuanxin gave him again. Inside, there was a strange blood-red and black stone the size of a basin. It looked like it was frozen blood, and it emitted a strong evil aura. It was Frost Soul Blood Fetus. Frost Soul Blood Fetus was a cultivation treasure for Demon World experts. It was condensed from the essence blood of Big Goblin and human experts. It was used by Demon World experts or Gorb demons to cultivate. When Su Fang was in the Great World, he obtained some Frost Soul Blood Fetus. It was very useful for Su Fang to cultivate the Yellow Spring Blood Sea. After coming to the Great World, Su Fang had not seen any Demon World experts other than fighting with fire demons. He had never seen a Frost Soul Blood Fetus. He did not expect Xuanxin to give him one. He did not know where he got it from. After sensing the Frost Soul Blood Fetus, Su Fang found that it contained a vast amount of life blood energy and an extremely evil aura. It was perfect for cultivating the Blue Sky Yellow Spring. The Yellow Spring Blood Sea was a physical cultivation technique. There was a limit to the Great Tao, but there was no limit to physical cultivation. Right now, the Yellow Spring Blood Sea was many times stronger than the Yellow Spring Great Emperor. Su Fang was looking forward to seeing how strong the Blue Sky Yellow Spring would be in the future. With this Frost Soul Blood Fetus, Su Fang would not only increase his cultivation level, but his Blue Sky Yellow Spring would also reach a higher level. After obtaining another cultivation treasure, Su Fang was naturally overjoyed. Xuanxin knew about Su Fang's cultivation technique. Not long ago, he went out to train and killed a demon expert. He obtained this Frost Soul Blood Fetus and specially gave it to Su Fang. Seeing Su Fang's satisfied expression, Xuanxin was relieved. He looked at Goddess Luo and smiled. Su Fang knew what the two were thinking. he laughed and said, "Since the two of you came to see me, even if you gave me a blade of grass, it would be extremely precious. If you want to compare, I think I am very satisfied with both gifts. So, the two of you can stay and accompany me." "In your dreams." Goddess Luo giggled and flashed out of the array formation space. "Focus on your cultivation," Xuanxin said coldly. He looked as if he was 1,000 miles away and followed Goddess Luo. Su Fang was very depressed. Why was it that after having one more Tao companion, he could not even get close to one of them? After being stunned for a while, Su Fang could only smile bitterly and shake his head. He got rid of the distracting thoughts in his mind and started to merge with the sun god fire to break through the 71st Yang Meridian. Hunyuan Heaven Domain. Not far from the entrance to Yuan Tiangong, there was a divine world, which was Su Fang's territory. It was personally created by the Blue Sky Domain Lord. Because this divine world belonged to Su Fang, it was named the Square Heaven Domain. Hundreds of gods shuttled out of the door to the Square Heaven Domain. A middle-aged man who had been waiting in the void welcomed them. This middle-aged man's aura was very faint. He was wearing a Tao robe with the pattern of the Big Dipper stars. He was a domain lord. The middle-aged man cupped his fists towards the hundreds of gods and said, "A fine bird chooses a fine tree to nest in. It is a wise choice for all of you to leave the Square Heaven Domain and join the Big Dipper sect." Chapter 2238. More than half of the experts who had left the celestial realm were led by an old man with ugly black spots on his face. He was skinny, but his cultivation level was extraordinary. He was a second Heaven Tao integration stage Divine Lord expert. This person's name was Black Bamboo Divine Lord, and he was a wandering cultivator. After Su Fang entered Primordius Heavenly Palace, he joined the Celestial World and was one of the few Tao integration realm powerhouses in the Celestial World. Unexpectedly, he left the Heaven Realm and took hundreds of experts with him. The weakest among them was an upper-level Divine Emperor, and there were more than a dozen godly venerables. Sir God Xian Zhu cupped his fists at the middle-aged man from the Big Dipper sect and said, "I came here because of Su Fang's reputation." Who knew that Su Fang's reputation was in vain? Not to mention, he made enemies everywhere. What future can he have by staying in the heaven world? If we continue like this, let alone our future, we might even be chased out of the Hunyuan heaven realm one day. Then Divine Emperor Xian Zhu said respectfully, "The Big Dipper sect is a famous force in the universe. It's also a branch of the ancient god world's Luo clan. It's our honor to be recruited by the Big Dipper sect. How can we not appreciate your kindness?" The experts behind him all complimented the Big Dipper sect and mocked Su Fang. "Divine Emperor Xian Zhu, how dare you betray His Highness Su Fang?" A thunderous roar came. Fan Ming, Shu Yunkong, the Blue Dome Domain Lord, and many experts from the Blue Dome Domain came out of the array. Shu Yunkong shouted angrily, "Divine Emperor Xian Zhu, and you, ever since you came to the Heaven Realm, you've been given all kinds of resources. How dare you betray the Heaven Realm and join the Big Dipper sect? How dare you?" The middle-aged man from the Big Dipper sect smiled coldly. "Divine Emperor Xian Zhu and the others are not Su Fang's slaves. How can they betray us? It won't be long before Su Fang is chased out of Yuan Tiangong. Do you want everyone to be unlucky with him? What is the Big Dipper sect? How dare you steal from His Highness Su Fang?" Fan Ming was furious. The middle-aged man from the Big Dipper sect sneered and looked at Fan Ming with disdain. "Lord Fan Ming, wait!" The Blue Dome Territorial Lord hurriedly stopped Fan Ming and transmitted a message to him. "The Luo tribe is behind the Big Dipper sect. They are clearly trying to stir up trouble. If we get into a conflict with the Big Dipper sect, it will give the Luo tribe an excuse to bring endless trouble to Prince Su Fang." Ming clenched his teeth. Domain. "A bunch of cowards!" The middle-aged man from the Big Dipper sect snorted in disdain. Then, he led Sir God Xian Zhu and the others away in embarrassment. Even after they had flown far away, mocking and cursing could be heard. Shu Shu Yunkong and the others. Divine. Fan Ming looked into the distance and clenched his teeth again. And Sanskrit. How dare they steal the spiritual chi of heaven and earth with the heaven-suppressing pillars? Outside the heavenly realm, there were dozens of huge copper pillars floating in the void. They transferred the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to the divine realm in the distance. This caused the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to decrease by 60%. Plundering the natural spiritual energy of heaven and earth in such an unbridled manner could be said to be arrogant and overbearing to the extreme. The people of the heavenly realm could only watch helplessly. Shu Yunkong and the others could not take it lying down after being bullied by Sanskrit. But Su Fang had offended Sanskrit and the Luo clan. With heaven's current strength, they could not fight against these two divine clans. Su Fang had even offended the punishment hall. Not only did the punishment hall not stand up for them, they even blamed them for being meddlesome. Shu Yunkong said in a low voice, "If this continues, heaven and earth will collapse sooner or later. We must contact Su Fang and find a way to solve this problem." The Azure Dome Domain Lord sighed. "I don't know what's going on with Su Fang. I heard that they have yet to challenge the 10,000 spell pagoda. Could it be that they were really punished and have fallen into depravity?" Everyone sighed, and their hearts became extremely heavy. Earth Realm Dojo. Su Fang flew out of the formation space and arrived at the main hall. The 71st Yang Meridian was about to be born after devouring the divine fire of Sunday. It's not easy. After cultivating for so long, a Yang Meridian is finally about to be born. Su Fang's face was filled with excitement. He gathered all the Yang Qi in his Yang Meridian and the power of the Yin Yang World Tree and poured it into the 71st Meridian. The Yang Meridian was enveloped in burning Yang Qi flames. It trembled violently under the impact and kept expanding. It looked like it would explode at any time. Thousands of impacts. Pa! A Xian Guang burst out from the meridian. After the meridian shook, it quickly calmed down and turned into a jade-like Yang Meridian. The Yang Qi in the Yang Meridian surged into the meridian. The newly born Yang Meridian quickly approached the end of the 70th Yang Meridian and connected head to tail. Just like that, the 71st Yang Meridian was successfully born. Su Fang's eyes flashed brightly. The birth of this Yang Meridian was only one step away from the 8th transformation. Su Fang could clearly feel that although the Yang Qi in the Yang Meridian had become empty, it had obviously increased to a higher level and became more unfathomable. With the birth of the 71st Yang Meridian, Su Fang could clearly feel that the speed of cultivation of the 9 Yang Meridian had increased. Naturally, the speed of cultivation had also increased. With the birth of a Yang Meridian, coupled with the many years of comprehension of the primitive world's heavenly Tao and the continuous integration of the origin sacred mirror, Su Fang's understanding of the heavenly Tao and the world in his body had become more and more profound. At this time, Su Fang had already touched upon a higher realm. After reaching the 8th transformation, the world in his body would undergo another earth-shaking transformation. His strength would definitely increase greatly as well. He might even obtain a supreme divine ability from the mirror that was even more powerful than the yin-yang transformation. Su Fang did not end his cultivation. Instead, he continued to activate the 9 Yang Meridian to recover the Yang Qi that he had consumed. There was still a portion of the Sun God Fire that had not been integrated. Su Fang sealed his physical body again and let his divine body integrate the essence of the Sun God Fire. He continuously tempered his physical body and improved his cultivation. Not long after settling into this state of cultivation, a rune talisman in the depths of his body stirred. As soon as he took out the rune talisman, Xian Lingzi's voice sounded from it. "Su Fang, how have you been?" "Grandfather, I heard that something went wrong when you were advancing to the Tao integration realm, and you were severely injured. Is this true?" Su Fang chuckled. Grandfather, I'm fine. Let others say whatever they want. Your master sent someone to bring a message to Yuan Tiangong. Something has happened outside. Xu Yunkong could not enter Yuan Tiangong. He could only send someone to bring a message to Xianlingzi in the Yellow Territory. Through Xianlingzi, he could get in touch with Su Fang. Xianlingzi slowly told Su Fang what had happened in the Square Heaven realm. Grandfather, I understand. After some time, I will personally go to Yuan Tiangong to deal with these things. Don't be impulsive. Focus on your cultivation. Let them be arrogant for now. As long as you are here, sooner or later, they will pay back double. He ended the conversation with Xianlingzi. After thinking for a while, Su Fang was not worried about the Square Heaven realm. The second primordial spirit stayed in the Hunyuan Heaven realm and was secretly developing the Soulless Force. It infiltrated the major forces, including the Sanskrit and the Luo clan. If there was really any big move against the Square Heaven realm, the second primordial spirit would have tried to send a message to the original body. It's almost the 10,000-year exam. It's time to teach those people a lesson. Su Fang's eyes flashed with a fierce cold light. Then, he separated two doppelgangers and sent them into the Dubhe Hall with a token. These two doppelgangers would replace him in the Dubhe Hall to participate in two grand events, the Yuan Tiangong Alchemist Selection and the Treasure Refiner Selection. Since he wanted to return the favor, the slap must be loud and clear. These two doppelgangers were the two slaps he had sent out. At this time, there was still nearly 1,000 years to the selection ceremony. However, the preliminary round was about to begin. The two doppelgangers must participate in the preliminary round first, and Su Fang's original body's goal was the 10,000 spell tower. As long as it was within 10,000 years, he could go there at any time. After surging and galloping, he wanted to let Gue also cultivate the Ice Soul Blood Fetus. However, it now had so many corpses of gluttonous demons to devour that it did not need to use it. There's still some time. I'll devour the Ice Soul Blood Fetus and try to make the Azure Falling Blood Dome reach a higher level. It would be even better if it could advance a small step. In the formation created by the Great Tao of Time, Su Fang formed a seal and transformed into the Azure Falling Blood Dome state. Another body condensed in the blood water. The blood water and the blood dome spiraled, releasing an amazing power of reincarnation. If combined with the power of the world of Yin and Yang, the current Azure Falling Underworld would be a reincarnation world created by Fang's blood. A demonic light rose from the blood water. In the center of the demonic light was the Ice Soul Blood Fetus that Xuanxin had specially given to Su Fang. This Ice Soul Blood Fetus was a demon god's cultivation item. It contained amazing life essence, energy, and an evil aura. It was a supreme treasure for cultivating the Azure Falling Underworld. Sizzle! The Ice Soul Blood Fetus was like blood frozen in high temperature. It was quickly melted by Su Fang's blood water. Boom! A moment later, a flame of life swept up and quickly filled the entire Azure Falling Underworld. The Ice Soul Blood Fetus quickly disappeared and turned into a part of the blood water. Illusory figures with evil thoughts tried to devour Su Fang's primordial spirit. However, Su Fang's Azure Falling Underworld not only devoured blood chi and spirit veins, but also had the terrifying ability to devour souls. In addition, Su Fang not only had a powerful primordial spirit, but also had the night demon technique to devour souls, not to mention the life-shrinking technique. How could he be affected by these evil remnant souls? About 1,000 years passed in the formation. Qi. Shocking tribulation qi spurted out from the blood water. Su Fang quickly transformed into a physical body. As soon as he entered the palace, the tribulation fire immediately burned fiercely. Chapter 2239. Every advancement was a painful metamorphosis. As the tribulation fire burned, his divine body shattered layer by layer. The impurities in his embryonic body seeped out and were burned to ashes by the tribulation fire. When the tribulation fire gradually weakened, the power of advancement began to sweep through. His divine body continued to shatter and transform until he finally reached the second firmament of the Tao integration stage. After a long period of secluded cultivation, Su Fang finally advanced to another level. This was how difficult it was to advance to the Tao integration realm. Every small step required tens of thousands of years, countless resources, and comprehension of the heavenly Tao. However, compared to other Tao integration stage experts, Su Fang's improvement was astonishing. Moreover, after each advancement, the increase in strength was also incomparable to other gods of the same level. After advancing to another small step, Su Fang's physical ability and various true body constitutions built on the perfect physical body also improved. Not only was his divine body stronger, but his perfect physical body also became more perfect. His senses also improved. Heaven and Earth Tao Palace and Divine Aperture also underwent a metamorphosis. The power of the yin-yang world and dermic powers became more vast and boiling. Counting with his fingers, there was still some time before the 10,000-year examination. Su Fang seized the time to restore his empty divine body after the advancement and frantically devoured pills and resources, striving to reach the second firmament before entering the 10,000 spell pagoda. There was still some energy left in the ice soul blood fetus. Su Fang divided it into two parts. One part cultivated the blue sky underworld, and the other part was for Gui Gui to cultivate. Time flew by. There were only 10 years left before the 10,000-year examination. The preliminary round of the Yuan Tiangong Pill Pagoda and Artifact Hall Genius Selection event ended. Su Fang's two clones were not ordinary clones. The clone that participated in the pill refinement was created by stripping the dragon-subduing true body and the Black Lotus true body from the immortal blood spirit. The clone that participated in the treasure refinement was formed by the Fire Cloud Emperor body. Although these two clones were not as strong as the original body, they were more than enough to refine pills and treasures. Coupled with Su Fang's ability to refine pills and treasures, it was easy for him to enter the finals. Su Fang's two doppelgangers successfully entered the finals at the same time, causing a huge commotion. The geniuses selected by the Pill Tower and Artifact Hall were the most outstanding young alchemists and artifact refiners from all over the universe. How intense would the competition be? Those who were able to enter the finals were all geniuses with outstanding talent in alchemy or artifact refinement. Su Fang relied on two doppelgangers to enter two finals at the same time. How shocking was this? After the initial shock, the crowd began to discuss animatedly. Su Fang was able to enter the finals of the alchemy and artifact refining pageant with his clone. I didn't expect him to have such a heaven-defying talent. If I were to personally participate, wouldn't I be able to obtain first place in any of the competitions? What is a genius? This is a genius. When Su Fang ascended to the Tao integration stage, he must have been seriously injured and hasn't recovered yet. Otherwise, why didn't he challenge the 10,000 spell pagoda and let his doppelganger participate in the pill refinement and treasure refinement festival? It's obvious that Su Fang intends to give up on challenging the 10,000 spell pagoda and is preparing to enter the pill tower or artifact hall as an alchemist or artifact refiner. Alchemists and artifact refiners may have noble identities, but it's difficult for them to reach the peak of cultivation. So what if he obtained first place in both competitions? What a pity! There were all kinds of comments about Su Fang. Some marveled at Su Fang's shocking talent, some felt sorry for Su Fang, and of course, there was no lack of people who took pleasure in his misfortune and ridiculed him. Luo Xingtian was even more proud. In his opinion, not only did he successfully win 100,000 points, but he also successfully suppressed Su Fang. So what if Su Fang became the #1 artifact refiner or alchemist in the universe? Although he was respected by others, it was nothing to the ancient divine clan. Di Yuan, who was in seclusion, did not speak for a long time when he learned that Su Fang had given up challenging the 10,000 spell pagoda and turned to alchemy and artifact refinement. In the depths of Yuan Tiangong, inside a world formed by rolling magma, inside a formation formed by a formation, Mo Tiangong was sitting cross-legged to recover. Behind him was an ancient artifact cauldron with the aura of creation. It was actually a creation artifact. Suddenly, Mo Tiangong grabbed a rune talisman. Xing Wuji's voice came from inside. "Blacksmith, this old man has just returned from the endless sky star ocean. I heard that Su Fang did not challenge the 10,000 spell pagoda, but instead sent his doppelganger to participate in the selection of the pill pagoda and the artifact hall. Could it be that you instigated him?" Mo Tiangong was shocked and stunned. "Is there such a thing? I have been refining artifacts for Di Zun all these years and have not contacted him." Then he smiled and said, "Su Fang's talent in refining artifacts is unparalleled. If he really enters the artifact hall, it may not be a bad thing. In the future, there will be another powerful artifact refiner in the universe, who can even surpass the heavenly fire. As for alchemy, when the time comes, let him give up. How can he do two things at the same time?" Xing Wuji's scolding voice came from the rune talisman. "Nonsense. Su Fang may set foot on the peak in the future, or even surpass heaven and earth. How can I let him walk on the small path of refining artifacts and alchemy? This brat, see how this old man will deal with him." Mo Tiangong was speechless and smiled bitterly. Earth Realm Dao Field. In the space of the array, Su Fang transformed into the blue sky underworld state. In these years, he had merged with the remaining cold soul blood fetus and swallowed a large amount of ancient pills and spiritual items from the Golden Rainbow King's treasure, causing the blue sky underworld to transform again. The space of the array inside the room was expanded by Su Fang again and again. At this time, it was thousands of miles wide, covered by the blood dome above and roaring blood below, forming a world of blue sky underworld. If Su Fang used his full strength at this time, together with the world in his body, the divine power of blue sky underworld could cover the area of a large world, swallowing everything in all directions. Its power was really shocking. Not only did the area expand, but the swallowing ability also increased. The power of various divine powers in the state of blue sky underworld also became extremely shocking. While a physical body condensed from the blood water, Su Fang grabbed a rune talisman. Just as his consciousness entered the rune talisman, Xing Wuji's roar came from it, and he scolded Su Fang furiously. "You self-abandoning bastard, you actually went to participate in alchemy and artifact forging, putting the cart before the horse. How preposterous, this old man wasted all my efforts on you." Su Fang was scolded to the point where he trembled and could only bite the bullet and wait for Xing Wuji to finish scolding him. Then, he touched the tip of his nose and said slowly, "Senior, did I say that I won't go to the 10,000 spell pagoda?" Xing Wuji's scolding stopped abruptly. Since you're going to go to the 10,000 spell pagoda, why did you send 2 clones to participate in the artifact forging and alchemy selection?" Su Fang recounted to Everlasting Life all the bullying and oppression he had suffered over the years. Xing Wuji was surprised and then said angrily, "These snobs, no wonder you specially invited this old man to preach the Tao to you." Then, he snorted and said, "Humph, which genius didn't step on countless corpses along the way? Since they took the initiative to jump out, let them be your stepping stones to the peak. Kid, what do you need this old man's help with?" "I do have a small favor." Su Fang laughed. Then, Su Fang told Xing Wuji his thoughts. After a moment of silence, Xing Wuji scolded, "You bastard, you're really a good-for-nothing, but this old man likes it." Not long after this exchange, Xing Wuji scolded Su Fang in front of everyone at a gathering of over-god experts, saying that he regretted adding him to the Hunyuan Golden List and that he was really blind. He also said in front of everyone that he would sever all ties with Su Fang. Mo Tiangong also scolded Su Fang, saying in front of everyone that he would never let Su Fang enter the artifact hall. He even wanted to chase Su Fang out of Yuan Tiangong. Only when the two overgods treated Su Fang like that did the geniuses who originally held hope for Su Fang believe that Su Fang had completely given up on his path of ways. He had completely sunk into depravity, or he had even given up. As a result, the geniuses who were on good terms with Su Fang all asked Su Fang about the situation through their tokens or runes. Even Xuanxin and Goddess Luo asked Su Fang specifically. However, Su Fang sealed the tokens and runes, cutting off all ties with anyone. In the Yellow Realm Training Hall, Xian Lingzi and the others who lived in Su Fang's territory were constantly harassed and blackmailed by Yellow Realm geniuses. In the Hunyuan Heaven Realm, the number of experts who left the Heaven Realm multiplied. The Sanskrit and the Luo clan were even more unscrupulous. The Punishment Hall would patrol the Heaven Realm almost every few months. Although they said they were patrolling, they were actually asking for benefits and treating the Heaven Realm as a fat sheep. If Su Fang was a Heaven Realm genius, any force would be wary of him. Not to mention his future achievements, which Heaven Realm genius didn't receive the attention of emperors. Entering the Pill Tower or the Artifact Hall was certainly a noble status, but those ancient god clans and super forces didn't care at all. No wonder the Luo clan and the Sanskrit were so unscrupulous, and the Punishment Hall was also adding insult to injury. There was still half a year until the 10,000-year exam. The alchemy and treasure refining genius selection had already begun. The geniuses who passed the preliminaries entered the Sky Pivot Hall, and the finals were about to begin. Su Fang's two clones also participated in the finals. Whoosh! Su Fang's original body flew out of the palace, activated the token and entered the Sky Pivot Hall, heading straight for the 10,000 spell tower. It's too late to think of challenging the 10,000 spell tower now. Hanji, who had been paying attention to Su Fang's every move, sensed Su Fang leaving the Earth Realm Training Hall and sneered disdainfully. There was still half a year until the time limit for the Yuan Tiangong 10,000-year exam was up. How could Su Fang pass the 10,000 spell tower and complete the basic task in half a year? Di Yuan also spent several years challenging the 10,000 spell tower. Could Su Fang surpass Di Yuan? QL11 Hanji, who had been taught a lesson by Emperor Sang Qiu and Emperor Only Dao, was completely relieved this time. Han Bei, Su Fang's training hall is yours. Go. Su Fang is not qualified to return to the Earth Realm Training Hall. Han Ji took out a young man from his palm. This young man was a junior of the Han Ji clan and was also a Yellow Realm genius. Originally, he wasn't qualified to enter the Earth Realm Training Hall. Chapter 2240. Han Bei, while Su Fang is going to the 10,000 spell pagoda, this ancestor will help you fuse with the essence of Su Fang's great desolate world. This way you can control his dojo. When he returns from the 10,000 spell pagoda, immediately challenge him. Not only will you seize his dojo, but you will also seize his identity as a disciple of the Earth Realm Dojo. Han Ji carefully instructed Han Bei. His eyes flashed with a ruthless light. According to the rules of Yuan Tiangong, the geniuses of lower-level dojos can challenge the geniuses of higher-level dojos. If they win, they can replace them. At this time, Han Ji let Han Bei challenge Su Fang. As long as he wins, he can logically enter the Earth Realm Dojo. Han Bei hesitated and said, "Ancestor, I am only a Yellow Realm genius. Even if I control Su Fang's great desolate world, I am afraid I am not his opponent. Moreover, I challenge Su Fang across the profound realm. Even if I succeed, it will be difficult to keep my position." Which genius would not be afraid of Su Fang's performance in the palace entrance test? Moreover, Han Bei was only a Yellow Realm genius. It was normal for him to be afraid of Su Fang. Stupid. Han Ji looked as if he expected better from Han Bei. Su Fang's two doppelgangers are participating in the alchemy and artifact selection. His main body is going to the 10,000 spell pagoda. In just half a year, it is impossible for him to succeed. Even if he succeeds this time, he will be exhausted. You control his dojo and borrow the power of the great desolate world. If you can't even defeat him, what qualifications do you have to be a Yuan Tiangong genius? Wait until you seize his dojo and kick him out of the Earth Realm. You will definitely be recognized by young Master Luo Xingtian. Plus, with this ancestor here, who will dare to challenge you? Han Ji angrily rebuked and then took Han Bei to Su Fang's dojo. Yellow Realm Dojo. Su Fang was in the fief of the Yellow Territory. Xian Lingzi gathered the 10,000 subordinates and Big Goblin that Su Fang brought into Yuan Tiangong. He was going to lead everyone to leave Yuan Tiangong and return to the Hunyuan Heaven Realm after Su Fang finished breaking through the 10,000 spell pagoda. Qin Yu, Bai Ling, and the other Big Goblin experts had returned after receiving missions. Qin Yu said in a low voice, "Strange, with Su Fang's strength, how can it be difficult for him to complete the basic tasks in the Earth Realm Dojo for 10,000 years?" Xian Lingzi said, "When we were in his fief, we were constantly disturbed and even forced to take our belongings. Su Fang was alone in the Earth Realm Dojo. He must have been bullied by the Luo clan. His days were hard." Bai Ling said hatefully, "Despicable Luo clan." Xian Lingzi said, "If we stay in Yuan Tiangong, not only will we waste merit points, but we will also become targets for other geniuses to threaten Su Fang. It's better to leave Yuan Tiangong." Everyone fell into silence. Although no one blamed Su Fang, they were unwilling to leave Yuan Tiangong like this. 10,000 spell pagoda. Because there was only half a year left before the 10,000-year time limit, there were not many people breaking through the 10,000 spell pagoda. Only a few people did not complete the basic task. At this time, they were holding on to the last chance to make a final attempt. Su Fang. Su Fang also came to break through the 10,000 spell pagoda. It's Su Fang's original body. He is like us, making a final struggle. The final struggle is better than waiting for death. What were you doing earlier? There is only half a year left. The basic task of an Earth Realm genius is to break through the 33rd floor of the pagoda. No matter how powerful Su Fang is, he can't break through the 33rd floor in half a year. As soon as Su Fang appeared, he immediately attracted people's attention. There were whispers. Some people immediately took out tokens or rune talismans to pass the message to other geniuses. Whoosh, Luo Xingtian appeared in the space outside the 10,000 spell pagoda. Behind him were more than a dozen Yuan Tiangong geniuses. After a while, Duanmu Renjie, Luoyang, and other geniuses appeared one after another. Xuanxin, Goddess Luo, Chu Bingyan, Tianbao, and other top 10 geniuses also appeared one after another. In less than half an hour, there were more than 3,000 people outside the 10,000 spell pagoda. Some came to see Su Fang make a fool of himself, some were worried about Su Fang, and most came to watch the fun. There were also many geniuses who were watching the Pill Pagoda and Artifact Hall's selections. They were watching Su Fang's clones refine pills and artifact. When they heard that Su Fang's original body was going to break through the 10,000 spell pagoda, they were all shocked and quickly rushed towards the 10,000 spell pagoda. "Su Fang, have you prepared the 100,000 points?" Luo Xingtian flew towards Su Fang and said proudly. Su Fang smiled casually and flew towards the entrance of the 10,000 spell pagoda. Luo Xingtian coldly shouted out, "Su Fang, don't disgrace yourself any further. Obediently hand over 100,000 points, and then get the hell out of this earthly realm Dao field. If you kneel down and beg for my forgiveness, then I will allow you to continue staying in Primordius Heavenly Palace." Otherwise, just wait for me to kick you out of Primordius' heavenly palace." Duanmu Renjis snorted with disdain. "I heard that you offended Lord Tianhua, and even Lord Mo Tiangong turned against you. Don't even think about the artifact hall. As for the Pill Pagoda, you won't even be able to touch the door." Xuanxin was about to say something when Goddess Luo said, "Don't worry. This time, Su Fang will use the fiercest method to show them who's boss." Su Fang suddenly turned around. Il Luoyang and the other geniuses from the ancient god world mocked and ridiculed. They were very proud, as if they could already see the scene of Su Fang being kicked out of the Yuan Tiangong. Su Fang's fierce eyes swept over the two of them. Then, he revealed a domineering smile and said coldly and embarrassedly, "You will reap what you sow. You want to step on Su Fang's head, so you should be prepared to be stepped on by me. I will take back everything you owe Su Fang." Under countless gazes, Su Fang slowly flew into the 10,000 spell pagoda. As soon as he entered the pagoda, a distorted divine power enveloped Su Fang and sent him into an empty space. An illusory figure came out of the void and turned into a tall and sturdy god. He stepped on the void and created ripples in space. Then, he threw a tyrannical punch at Su Fang. This tall and sturdy god was condensed from the laws and energy of the 10,000 spell pagoda. His strength was at the peak of the 9th heaven of godly venerable realm. The trial targets in the 10,000 spell pagoda were not much different from real beings, except that they did not have any aura of life. Although the trial target Su Fang was facing did not use any divine ability or fist art, his punch contained the laws of the great Tao and carried a terrifying aura that could destroy everything. The trial targets on the first floor of the 10,000 spell pagoda are peak 9th heaven of godly venerable realm expert. The test of the 10,000 spell pagoda is actually so difficult. If it was before I entered the Yuan Tiangong, it wouldn't be difficult for me to kill this trial target. But there are so many more levels later. Even completing the basic mission is incomparably difficult. I have to at least pass through the 33rd floor to be considered as completing the basic mission. But how can my goal only be this? The road ahead is still very long. I have to conserve my strength as much as possible and use my divine body to deal with the trial target on the first floor. Su Fang condensed the power of his divine body and charged toward the god. Boom! The fists collided fiercely, causing the space to tremble and set off waves of terrifying spatial wind that swept in all directions. Su Fang's body swayed for a moment before it stopped moving. That god was sent flying by Su Fang's punch. His divine body shattered layer by layer and turned into fragments that disappeared into space. Su Fang's perfect vision swept through the space and saw a staircase floating in the depths of the space. He walked in without hesitation and went up the stairs step by step. Finally, he disappeared from the first floor and entered the second floor. Arriving at an empty space, an icy voice rang out, "Trial takers have 10 days to recover every time they advance to the next level. Do you need to stop and recover?" "No need." Su Fang answered without hesitation. QL11 The formation directly sent Su Fang to the second floor. The second floor of the 10,000 spell pagoda was exactly the same as the first floor. His opponents were also gods, but there was one more. This meant that Su Fang was facing two powerful opponents at the peak of the 9th heaven of ultimate god. Fortunately, I've already stepped into the Tao integration realm. Otherwise, just the second floor alone would consume a lot of my cultivation power. Su Fang raised his eyebrows and realized that the test of the 10,000 spell pagoda was really difficult. Boom! Boom! Su Fang still relied on his powerful divine body to fight against the two trial target. He was already at the second heaven of the Tao integration realm and completely crushed the ultimate god realm. The two trial targets only lasted for half an hour before they were killed by Su Fang. Just like that, Su Fang used his divine body to fight his way from the first floor to the 11th floor of the 10,000 spell pagoda. The whole process only took half a day. The trial targets below the 11th floor included gods, Big Goblin, and Demon God. However, none of them had surpassed the ultimate God realm and were not a threat to Tao integration realm expert. The cold voice sounded again in the space. Trial taker, do you need to rest? No need. Su Fang directly entered the 12th floor. Huff, huff. The 12th floor was completely different from the 11th floor. It was no longer an empty space, but a world with howling winds. The wind raged wildly in the space, making a sound that shook the primordial spirit consciousness. The wind blew on the divine body as if it was cut by a knife. Although Su Fang's powerful divine body was not enough to injure him, it was still extremely painful. Whoosh! A faint shadow lurking in the wind suddenly appeared behind Su Fang. It quickly formed a seal and set off a terrifying storm that swept toward Su Fang. The trial target was still at the ultimate God realm, but with the help of the environment, the power of the divine power was already beyond the ultimate God realm. In front of a Tao integration realm expert, all ultimate gods are ants, unless you have a heaven-defying divine weapon like the Origin Sacred Mirror or a supreme seal like the Yin-Yang transformation like me. Su Fang smiled disdainfully and unleashed the power of the Yin-Yang world, projecting it into the space. In an instant, the area covered by Su Fang's divine power was suddenly calm. The trial target's divine power collapsed and disappeared. Then, it appeared in the wind and was easily killed by Su Fang's divine power. Next, Su Fang not only had to face more and more opponents, but the environment also became more and more dangerous. It was very difficult to break through without reaching the Tao integration realm. Chapter 2241. From the 12th floor to the 22nd floor of the 10,000 spell pagoda, Su Fang took a total of 15 days. His speed was far faster than the other geniuses, including Goddess Luo and even Di Yuan. The smug smiles on the faces of Luo Xingtian and the others had long frozen. Their faces darkened, and they were no longer as proud and arrogant as before. The other gods were all shocked as well. Didn't they say that Su Fang was seriously injured when he advanced to the Tao integration stage and was unable to challenge the pagoda, so he switched to refining pills and refining weapons? At this speed, Su Fang will be able to pass the 33rd floor in 3 months and complete the basic mission. That's not necessarily true. There are still 11 floors that are more difficult. Di Yuan also spent a lot of time on the first 11 floors. Su Fang may not be able to pass the 33rd floor in another 5 to 15 months. Su Fang's performance is enough to prove that he has already surpassed Di Yuan. There is no doubt about it. He didn't sink into depravity. It's obvious that he has been accumulating for a long time. He'll amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Many geniuses discussed animatedly, and there were constantly people coming over to inquire. Soon, the 10,000 spell pagoda was surrounded by people. Almost all the geniuses in the heaven, earth, black, and yellow realms were alarmed. After passing the 22nd floor, Su Fang began to rest and recover. Duanmu Renjia said disdainfully, "I thought he could reach the 99th floor in one go. He's obviously an arrow at the end of its flight and can't continue." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Fang began to challenge the pagoda again. 3 days later, he passed the 23rd floor. Another 5 days later, Su Fang reached the 25th floor. Although his speed was not as exaggerated as before, it was definitely not slow. Compared to the other geniuses, it could even be called shocking. Damn it! Is there an expert secretly helping him? Or did Su Fang use some sort of cheating method? Otherwise, how could Su Fang's speed be so fast? Luo Xingtian gritted his teeth. He even suspected that there was an Emperor Realm expert helping Su Fang. There were many geniuses who could pass the 22nd floor, but most of them stopped at the 23rd floor. Why was that? After the 23rd floor, the difficulty of each floor doubled. Not only the environment, but the number of trial participants also doubled. The mastery of the great Tao had also reached the limit of the hierarch realm. Even though Su Fang possessed the power of a Tao integration stage supermighty figure, his speed in clearing the tower was still unheard of. Luo Xingtian and the others could only see a blurry shadow with the help of the token. They couldn't even see Su Fang's supernatural power clearly. It was no wonder that Luo Xingtian was suspicious. A month later, Su Fang reached the 30th floor. Boom, 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 boom. These ancient barbaric ox beasts looked like oxen and belonged to the ancient era's vicious beasts. They didn't have high intelligence and couldn't transform into human form. However, their bodies were huge, at least 10 feet tall. Moreover, their skin was rough and their flesh was thick. Su Fang was facing 100,000 barbaric bull beasts. 10 of them were at the peak of the 9th heaven of the ultimate god realm, 1,000 of them were ordinary ultimate gods, and the rest were at the divine emperor realm. Su Fang could easily deal with an ancient bull beast. However, when 100,000 of them gathered together to form a single entity, the aura they gathered was definitely not as simple as the sum of 100,000. Moreover, these ancient bull beasts were born with the ability to draw upon the natural earth-type power of heaven and earth. As 100,000 ancient bull beasts galloped forward, they set off a majestic earth-type divine might. Even a Tao integration initial stage powerhouse would be crushed into dust if they were to collide head-on with this earth-type power. Although I'm powerful enough to crush early-stage Tao integration cultivators, I'm not a Tao integration cultivator after all. I'll show you what a Tao integration cultivator's strength is like. Su Fang revealed a domineering smile. The yin-yang godly power of the world was projected from his body, instantly enveloping the entire space. In an instant, the heavens and earth turned into a state of chaos. Without the support of the natural energy of the heavens and earth, the aura of the 100,000 barbaric ox beasts dropped sharply by 30%. In the next moment, Su Fang quickly formed a seal. Break! QL11 The world suddenly changed drastically. Clear air rose and turbid air fell. A terrifying divine might that seemed capable of splitting the heavens and earth erupted with a loud bang, forcibly tearing a huge crack in the midst of the 100,000 barbaric ox beasts. At least 3,000 barbaric ox beasts were killed in an instant. The herd of oxen was thrown into chaos. They no longer had the aura of unity and were now in a state of disunity. Then, Su Fang's figure swayed and rushed toward the incoming barbaric ox beast. With a boom, his divine body was set ablaze and transformed into a state of flames. The combination of the divine might of the world of flames and the divine might of the world of flames instantly turned the entire space into a world of flames. The fur of the barbaric ox beasts was immediately set ablaze. They became even more chaotic as they trampled on each other. No one knew how many were killed or injured. At the same time, Su Fang had also turned into a burning cloud of fire. Wherever he went, the barbaric ox beasts of the divine emperor realm were quickly turned into ashes. The barbaric ox beasts that were equivalent to the hierarch realm were also burned to a crisp. The fierce battle lasted for nearly 5 days. The last barbaric ox beast was killed by Su Fang. A staircase appeared in the space. Su Fang climbed up the stairs and left the 30th floor. It's impossible to pass the 33rd floor. It's impossible. Luo Xingtian stared at Su Fang's figure in the 10,000 spell pagoda with the help of the token. Unknowingly, his eyes turned red like a desperate gambler. Luoyang said coldly, Luo Xingtian, we were all fooled by Su Fang. He already had the strength to pass the 33rd floor. The reason why he waited until the last moment to enter the 10,000 spell pagoda was to slap our faces. How could Luo Xingtian not know this? He was just unwilling to accept it. He said resentfully, so what if he passed the 33rd floor? He might not be able to surpass me. I'm ranked 8th in the 10,000 spell pagoda. In the 10,000 years since they entered the Yuan Tiangong, every genius improvement was astonishing. Luo Xingtian was confident that with his improvement speed and Su Fang's cultivation being disrupted by the cold plant, even if Su Fang passed the 33rd floor, it was impossible for him to surpass him. Hearing Yi Luoyang and Luo Xingtian's words, Goddess Luo sneered in her heart. I'm afraid Su Fang not only wants to slap your faces, but also trample you under his feet. Otherwise, why would he send his doppelganger to participate in the Pill Pagoda and Weapon Hall selections? Why would he wait until the last moment to enter the 10,000 spell pagoda? On the 31st floor, the trial space was a demon world filled with demonic aura. Su Fang encountered 100 big goblin whose strength was equivalent to peak ultimate god. He projected the power of his inner world out of his body and changed the heaven and earth. Then, he performed the blue sky underworld, turning the demon world into a land of death covered by a blood dome and a sea of blood. 3 days later, Su Fang put away the blood dome and blood water. The demon world had turned into a wasteland. On the 32nd floor, Su Fang performed the giant diamond body transformation and suppressed 10,000 demon experts. On the 33rd floor, under countless gazes, Su Fang performed the great Tao of time. Together with the power of the heavenly Tao in his body, he forcefully turned 1,000 resurrected experts who were almost impossible to kill into bones and ashes in the end. After leaving the 33rd floor, Su Fang rested and recovered again. Outside the pagoda, among the exclamations, there were some who cheered for Su Fang. Su Fang passing the 33rd floor didn't just mean that he had completed the basic mission. From the first floor to the 33rd floor, he only used a total of 2 months. Such speed was unparalleled. When Di Yuan challenged the 10,000 spell pagoda for the first time, he also used 4 months to reach the 33rd floor. This was enough to prove that not only did Su Fang not sink, but his strength wasn't weaker than the other Heaven Realm geniuses. He even had the strength to challenge Di Yuan. I wonder how many floors Su Fang can reach in the end? Many geniuses were looking forward to it. Some of the geniuses now vaguely understood that Su Fang's last-minute challenge wasn't that simple. Just as many Yuan Tiangong geniuses were paying attention to the 10,000 spell pagoda. The Pill Pagoda and Weapon Hall's genius selection event was about to be revealed. Everyone was looking forward to who would take first place in alchemy and treasure forging. However, everyone was also paying attention to Su Fang's ranking and whether he could enter the Pill Pagoda or Weapon Hall. Divine Pivot Hall. In the depths of a side hall that specialized in Dharma treasures. In a huge space created by a peerless expert, the Weapon Hall's selection event had reached its final stage. In the center of the array space, a 1,000-mile-long altar floated in the air. After the preliminary round, 3,000 treasure refiners were doing their final sprint on the altar. On the altar, heavenly marks were densely packed, emitting a mysterious xian guang. They converged into a river of time that swirled around the altar, reflecting the interior of the altar into a bizarre and motley scene. Refining a divine artifact required a long period of time, ranging from a few thousand years to a few million years. It was impossible for the Weapon Hall to wait that long. This altar was a creation divine artifact, and it wasn't an ordinary one. It could release the divine might of the great Tao of time, transforming it into a river of time that accelerated the flow of time in the space within by 10,000 times. Only venerable emperors were qualified to possess such an amazing divine artifact. Other gods, even overgods, would find it difficult to use such a divine artifact even if they possessed one. In the space within the altar, at the highest point of the altar, there were more than 100 treasure refiners sitting on a high platform. The person sitting in the most important position in the middle looked very old, but his aura was extremely majestic, like that of a middle-aged man. He was Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Mo Tiangong sat beside Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. The other treasure refiners were all famous figures in the universe. Su Fang's avatar sat in front of an artifact cauldron, motionless. Occasionally, He would conjure a seal to activate the artifact cauldron and nourish the divine artifact within. Sensing power constantly passed through his body through the spell altar. The heavenly secret life shrinking techniques Tao runes fused deep within his yang soul constantly flashed, allowing Su Fang to know the owner of the sensing force. Other than the treasure refiners present, there was Mo Tiangong and Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Chapter 2242. On the high platform, a middle-aged man dressed in a red robe suddenly asked Mo Tiangong, "Master Mo, you were the one who taught Su Fang the hand seals he used, right?" Mo Tiangong chuckled and said, "Su Fang once learned blacksmithing from me for a few days. No wonder his blacksmithing skills are so extraordinary. So he learned from Lord Mo Tiangong. Furthermore, the flames he unleashed were also very extraordinary. They seemed to contain the might of the great desolate earth flame, and an extremely tyrannical divine flame. His ability to control flames was actually not inferior to our fire god clan." The middle-aged man clicked his tongue in praise. He was a blacksmithing master from the fire god ancient clan. Not only did the fire god ancient clan have unparalleled fire elemental great Tao divine powers, but they also had many blacksmithing masters. In Yuan Tiangong's artifact hall, the blacksmithing masters of the fire god ancient clan played an important role in the artifact hall. Mo Tiangong asked, "Master Zhu, do you think Su Fang has the strength to enter the top 10? The middle-aged man glanced at Su Fang and said slowly, "There are many geniuses in this artifact master selection. Although Su Fang is extraordinary, he has only cultivated in the art of blacksmithing for a short period of time. It is already not easy for him to enter the artifact hall. Entering the top 10 will be difficult." Heavenly Fire Divine Lord snorted and said, "He only relies on flames and the power of other treasures. It is not his true blacksmithing ability. What use is there for the artifact hall to recruit such a blacksmith?" "Master Heavenly Fire, you are mistaken. Be it flames or other treasures, they are part of a blacksmith's strength. Lord Heavenly Fire cultivates the fire of heavenly tribulation. Is that not a master's ability?" The middle-aged man from the fire god ancient clan retorted Heavenly Fire without holding back. Although Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was the best blacksmith in the myriad of worlds, the blacksmithing master from the fire god ancient clan was naturally inferior to him. However, the fire god ancient clan was the oldest human race. They had a strong foundation and were naturally unafraid of heavenly fire. However, the reason why this master blacksmith from the fire god Zhu clan spoke up for Su Fang and did not hesitate to offend heavenly fire was not because of justice, but because the fire god Zhu clan owed Su Fang a great favor. Su Fang returned the fire god Zhu clan's peerless divine power, the fire god Zhu clan's fire god Fire Cloud. Zhu Yen, the nominal disciple that the Zhu clan had brought to the myriad worlds from the great world, had performed exceptionally well after returning to the Zhu clan. He had become a genius that the Zhu clan had carefully nurtured. They owed Su Fang such a big favor, so how could the fire god Zhu clan not speak up for Su Fang? Heavenly Fire snorted, and was about to refute the Zhu clan's tool refining grandmaster when Su Fang suddenly made a hand seal and shot a purple Xian Guang into the cauldron. Buzz buzz buzz, the incomplete divine artifact in the cauldron let out a buzzing sound filled with excitement. Instantly, the divine artifacts in the cauldrons let out a buzzing sound, as if responding to the divine artifact in Su Fang's cauldron. The blacksmiths found it difficult to control the divine artifacts in the cauldrons as their divine lights flickered. Purple Chi Dharma Spirit. Damn it, this kid is using the purple Chi Dharma Spirit to refine divine artifacts. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's eyes flashed with a terrifying light as he stared at Su Fang. He wanted nothing more than to strip the purple Chi Dharma Spirit from Su Fang's body. Great fertility purple Chi? Mo Tiangong, the blacksmiths from the Zhu clan, and the blacksmiths from the weapon hall on the high platform all revealed looks of disbelief. These people were all top blacksmiths in the myriad worlds, so they were naturally familiar with the mysterious great fertility purple qi. At that moment, Su Fang calmly produced another seal that entered the cauldron and fused with it. Then, he controlled the cauldron's fire to continue brewing the divine artifact. The seal looked simple and unadorned, but in fact, it contained all the great Tao's Dharma. It was profound and extremely profound. It left Heavenly Fire Divine Lord, Mo Tiangong, and company astounded. Su Fang had stripped a wisp of the purple qi Dharma spirit and simplified the yin-yang transformation before fusing it into the divine artifact he was refining. As such, no matter how ordinary the divine artifact was, it would become extraordinary. The Zhu clan's blacksmith master's eyes shone as he exclaimed, "By fusing the mysterious purple qi and the supreme seal, the divine artifact refined by Su Fang has a chance of entering the top 10 or even the top 3. This kid, he's always quiet, but once he does, he shocks the world," Mo Tiangong said with a chuckle. He glanced at Heavenly Fire Divine Lord with a mocking look in his eyes. The Zhu clan's blacksmith master said in surprise, "Didn't Master Mo reprimand Su Fang in front of everyone? Why are you speaking up for him today?" Mo Tiangong chuckled. "I was exasperated at his failure to live up to my expectations." Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's face was gloomy. Terrifying tribulation fire surged in his eyes. He was like a volcano that could erupt at any time. Just as the artifact hall selection was reaching its final critical moment, the Pill Pagoda's selection was also coming to an end. It was different from the artifact hall's selection. There were many more alchemists who entered the final round of the Pill Pagoda's selection. There were more than 10,000 alchemists. The Pill Pagoda's selection was not as shocking as the artifact hall's selection. They placed the final round in the creation artifacts space. Instead, they created a chrono array that allowed time to flow 100 times faster than the outside world. After all, refining elixirs took less time than refining artifacts. The rules of the Pill Pagoda selection were also slightly different. In the treasure refining selection, the artifact hall provided all kinds of materials. There were certain restrictions on the number of divine artifacts that could be refined. However, there were no restrictions on the materials or pill formulas for refining elixirs. As long as the alchemist had the ability, the Pill Pagoda would provide all kinds of elixir refining materials. The final outcome would be determined by the quality of the elixir. More than 10,000 alchemists were activating their cauldrons to refine elixirs at the same time. The scene was extremely spectacular. The interior of the array space was filled with lingering clouds and a medicinal fragrance. However, there were discordant sounds from time to time. For example, the failure of refining elixirs or cauldrons exploding. Some alchemists were crying and making a fuss after failing to refine elixirs due to the immense pressure. One of Su Fang's avatars was sitting cross-legged in front of the cauldron. He had already prepared spiritual water and was preparing for the final step of refining elixirs. He was going to cleanse the elixirs before they were born. The elixir he was refining was called the Heaven's Response Elixir. The pill formula came from the Golden Rainbow Monarch's treasure trove. It was a type of elixir that had long been lost. Although it was only supreme grade, its medicinal efficacy was extremely unique. The main function of the Heaven's Response Elixir was to help immortals comprehend the heavenly Tao. After consuming the Heaven's Response Elixir, it could stimulate one's primordial spirit and consciousness to enter a state of sudden enlightenment. It was even possible for one to come into contact with the origin of the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao was ethereal and ethereal. Immortals above the Tao integration realm cultivated to be in harmony with the heavenly Tao and to cultivate their own great Tao. One could imagine how useful the Heaven's Response Elixir would be for Tao integration realm cultivators. It might even have some effect on Lord-level cultivators. However, the materials required to refine the Heaven's Response Elixir were extremely rare. One of them required the fruit of a divine tree called the Enlightenment Bodhi wood. The Enlightenment Bodhi wood was almost extinct in the universe. As a result, the formula for refining the heaven's response elixir was gradually lost. In Yuan Tiangong, there was a holy land for cultivation called the Bodhi Grotto Heaven. It just so happened that there was an Enlightenment Bodhi wood there. Its fruit, leaves, and resin were all excellent materials for refining elixirs. Therefore, the Pill Tower's selection this time also happened to have the fruit of the Enlightenment Bodhi wood. Su Fang decided to refine the Heaven's Response elixir because of this. QL11 More than 100 alchemy masters of the Pill Tower sat cross-legged in the air amidst clouds. They were secretly observing the many young alchemists who were participating in the selection. The alchemy master who was presiding over the selection was an old man wearing a blue and white robe with heavenly marks. He was from the Duanmu Divine Clan. The Duanmu Divine Clan mainly cultivated the great Tao of wood. The Tao of alchemy was also compulsory for every member of the clan. Therefore, the clan members were especially proficient in refining elixirs. In the universe, no other divine clan or force could be compared to the Duanmu Divine Clan in terms of refining elixirs. There were more than 100 alchemy masters in the Pill Tower. More than 20 of them were from the Duanmu Divine Clan. It was clear that the Duanmu Divine Clan's strength in refining elixirs was unparalleled in the universe. The old man from the Duanmu Divine Clan scanned the many alchemists. He then asked a Duanmu Divine Clan alchemy master beside him, "Which one is Su Fang?" The Duanmu Divine Clan alchemy master pointed at Su Fang and said, "This one is him." The old man from the Duanmu Divine Clan glanced at Su Fang and snorted. "This one is too arrogant. He actually came to participate in the selection of the Pill Tower with his clone. If it wasn't for Xing Wuji, that old bastard, who specially notified me, I would have kicked him out. Humph, I want to see what kind of elixirs he can refine that he dares to look down on the Pill Tower." The Duanmu Divine Clan alchemy master chuckled. "This one is indeed arrogant. I heard that he has some conflicts with young Master Renji." The old man from the Duanmu Divine Clan snorted. "Refining elixirs is refining elixirs. Why do you care so much?" Duanmu Renjie was lucky enough to enter the Heavenly Realm Training Hall. Instead of focusing on his cultivation, he has been engaging in meaningless disputes with others. He is really a good-for-nothing. If he doesn't know how to restrain himself, he will be kicked out of the Heavenly Realm sooner or later. At that time, even the Duanmu Divine Clan will be disgraced by him. 10,000 Spell Tower. After resting for 10 days, Su Fang stepped onto the 34th floor. The difficulty of the 10,000 spell pagoda had exceeded his expectations. After the 34th floor, the strength of the trial participants had increased to that of the Tao integration stage. If I had not used my trump card when I first entered the Yuan Tiangong, it would have been difficult for me to even pass the 33rd floor. But now I have already advanced to the third heaven of the Tao integration stage. Opponents of the Tao integration stage, even if they are realm lords, will not be able to stop me from advancing. I have been silent for 10,000 years. Today I will completely erupt. Su Fang no longer concealed his strength. Other than the yin-yang change, the heavenly Tao appearance, and the heavenly fate manipulation technique, he also used the heavenly secret life shrinking technique and other forbidden techniques that consumed his life force and providence. Starting from the 34th floor, Su Fang was like a hot knife through butter. He advanced fiercely and his speed was actually faster than that of the 33rd floor and below. The 35th floor, the 40th floor, the 45th floor, on the stone tablet outside the 10,000 spell pagoda, Su Fang's name continued to rise. He had already surpassed Luo Xingtian's 8th place. Finally, he reached the 45th floor. He was only one floor away from Diyuan, who was ranked first. It's impossible to surpass Diyuan. It's impossible. Luo Xingtian was dumbfounded. Using the power of the token, he stared at Su Fang's figure in the 10,000 spell pagoda. His eyes were bloodshot. The 46th floor. 10 days later, Su Fang reached the 46th floor. Chapter 2243. Damn it! I was actually tricked by this lowly ant. Luo Xingtian gritted his teeth. His eyes flashed with starlight and he was furious. His face was burning hot as if he had been slapped countless times by Su Fang in public. Only now did he realize that his previous actions against Su Fang were no different from a clown. In everyone's eyes, he was a complete idiot. Han Ji, that old trash, even a dog raised by the Luo clan is stronger than him. At this moment, Luo Xingtian hated Han Ji to the bone. Didn't they say that it was impossible for Su Fang to challenge the 10,000 spell pagoda? How did things turn out like this? Duanmu Renjie, Yi Luoyang, and the others didn't look too good. Xuanxin smiled knowingly and said to Goddess Luo, "He has always been like this. He likes to do shocking things." Goddess Luo shook her head and said, "Shocking the world? It's not over yet." Many Yuan Tiangong geniuses stared at the stone tablet outside the 10,000 Arts Pagoda with shock in their eyes. Those Huang territory disciples who had targeted Xian Lingzi and the others in the Huang territory Su Fang's fiefdom began to feel extremely uneasy. Some of the Huang realm disciples still held on to a sliver of hope in their hearts, while others who were slightly smarter immediately left the space where the 10,000 spell pagoda was located and returned to the Huang realm dojo. Just as Goddess Luo expected, after Su Fang passed the 46th level, he rested for 10 days before continuing. In less than 3 months' time, Su Fang had passed through level 55. As he continued onward, the trial targets he encountered were no longer ordinary Dao integration stage cultivators, but domain lords. Whoosh, whoosh. One figure after another broke through the sky and arrived. There were over 70 people in total, and all of their presences were vague. As their eyes flickered, illusions of the ways of the world appeared in their eyes. They were all over-gods, and infinite life was among them. So many over-god experts have been alerted. Many Yuan Tiangong geniuses were shocked. The outside of the Tower of 10,000 Arts suddenly became silent. A figure appeared in the space of the 10,000 Arts Pagoda. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and every move he made had the aura of a sovereign descending upon the world. Diyuan, who had not appeared all along, also appeared in the 10,000 spell tower at this time. He glanced at the stone tablet in front of the 10,000 spell tower. Diyuan smiled lightly, and a sense of pride arose spontaneously. You waited until the last moment to challenge the 10,000 spell pagoda. Is your purpose to overwhelm me? That's the result this young master left behind nearly 10,000 years ago. Even if you surpass it, so what? You're making progress, but I'm making 10 times as much progress as you. With a flash, Diyuan also entered the 10,000 spell pagoda and appeared on the 45th floor. Diyuan also entered the 10,000 spell pagoda. He's planning to compete with Su Fang. Between Diyuan and Su Fang, who will leave the highest record in the 10,000 spell pagoda? All the geniuses were in high spirits as they activated their command tokens and relied on the divine might of the command tokens to stare fixedly at every single move of Su Fang and Diyuan. The eyes of the king gods also shone brightly as they watched the confrontation between the two geniuses of the Yuan Tiangong. In the inner world of the creation divine weapon, where the artifact hall selection ceremony was held, Mo Tiangong, who was watching Su Fang, suddenly changed his divine light. He formed a hand seal, and a Xian Guang bloomed in his palm. A primordial spirit shadow from infinite life condensed. Infinite life's primordial spirit shadow laughed loudly. Blacksmith, Su Fang has already passed the 55th, no, the 56th floor of the 10,000 spell pagoda. Why aren't you coming over to watch the show? The 56th floor of the 10,000 spell pagoda? A terrifying light flashed in Mo Tiangong's eyes. The tool refinement masters beside him were all shocked and surprised. Even the heavenly fire divine Lord was moved. The floors between the 33rd and 66th floors of the 10,000 spell pagoda were specially designed to test Tao integration stage true gods. The 56th floor proved that Su Fang's current strength had already surpassed the mid-stage Tao integration stage and reached the late-stage Tao integration stage as a domain lord. Moreover, the test subjects in the 10,000 spell pagoda were not ordinary domain lords but the strongest true gods of the same level. Some of the tool refinement masters present had tried the 10,000 spell pagoda before, but none of them could pass the 56th floor. Su Fang had actually charged all the way to the 56th level in a short few months. How shocking was this? What was even more shocking was that Su Fang had actually created 2 doppelgangers to participate in the selection of the artifact hall and the pill pagoda. This showed that he had not fully displayed his strength. Su Fang is going to defy the heavens again this time. He has already shocked everyone in the 10,000 spell pagoda. I wonder what kind of commotion he will create in the selection of the artifact hall. Mo Tiangong stroked his beard and chuckled as he looked down at Su Fang, who was waiting for the divine weapon to appear. Then, he peeled off a sun spirit and left the internal space of the divine weapon, heading straight for the 10,000 spell pagoda. In the Yellow Territory dojo, in Su Fang's fief, Xian Lingzi and the others had already packed up and were waiting for Su Fang to come out of the 10,000 spell pagoda. Then, they would contact him and leave the Yuan Tiangong. Yellow Territory disciple Meng Yongjin greets Senior Xian Ling. Yellow Territory disciple Zhou Yao greets Senior Xian Ling and other friends. More than a dozen Yellow Territory disciples appeared outside the material and shouted loudly. Meng Yongjin? Zhou Yao? These people have come to extort us many times before. That Zhou Yao was injured by Qingyu. In the end, the Yellow Territory dojo's Heaven Punisher stepped in and extorted a total of 1,000 merit points. Why are they here now? These shameless scoundrels who take advantage of the situation. Swallow them whole. Qingyu roared angrily. Bai Ling took out the chaos ring. The others were all burning with anger and rushed out of the material with murderous intent. Xian Lingzi could not control them at all. Everyone, please don't misunderstand. We are not here to provoke you. We are here to apologize. A handsome young man in the lead hurriedly cupped his fist and explained. The other Yellow Territory geniuses also spoke one after another. Everyone was shocked and stunned. Bai Ling snorted coldly and said, "What tricks do you want to play now? I don't care what tricks they have. Kill them all." The red-haired brawny man transformed from the fire lizard roared angrily. Whoosh! The handsome young man in the lead took out a storage ring and released Xian Guang from it. It actually covered more than 10,000 peak supreme-grade elixirs. Qingyu and the other big goblin experts were all stunned. Did these people really come to apologize? These Yellow Territory geniuses used to be very arrogant. Why did they suddenly have a conscience and come to apologize? The handsome young man smiled and said, "I was blind before. I was instigated by some people and rudely offended Senior Xian Lingzi and all of you. These 10,000 supreme-grade elixirs are my apology. Please accept them." The other Yellow Territory geniuses also opened their mouths to apologize and took out storage rings. Some of them were elixirs and some were spiritual objects. For the Yuan Tiangong geniuses, they were not very valuable. However, for Xian Lingzi and the others, they were all valuable gifts. Sorry for the offense. I will leave now. The Yellow Territory geniuses cupped their fists to Xian Lingzi and the others, left their storage rings, and then quickly left. Xian Lingzi and the others were confused and did not know what was going on. Next, people came one after another. There was only one purpose, and that was to apologize. In the end, even the Supreme of the Yellow Territory Taoist Temple came in person. Xian Lingzi and the others finally understood what was going on. They suddenly burst into cheers and swept away their previous gloominess. They completely dispelled the idea of leaving. In the 10,000 spell pagoda, Su Fang kept climbing. The trial opponents he encountered became more and more powerful. He had to use powerful methods. The great giant diamond body, the mighty palm, and the immortal golden body. Then, there were the blue sky underworld, the ethereal truth, the Kai Tian seal, and other supernatural powers. Finally, there was the Heavenly Way Dharma idol. The Heavenly Way Dharma idol showed unparalleled power. Almost every time it merged with a fruit of the Dharma idol tree with the Sun Spirit, the supernatural powers it unleashed could kill the trial opponents and let Su Fang pass a level. However, every time the fruit of the Dharma idol tree was activated, it would take a long time to accumulate power and use it again. After Su Fang used the Heavenly Way Dharma idol, it meant that he could not hold on for too long. Until he reached the 66th floor, Su Fang used the black and white fruit on the top of the Dharma idol tree. He unleashed a supernatural power similar to the yin-yang change and finally passed the 66th floor. In the 10,000 spell pagoda, a cold voice sounded, "Trial taker, do you need to rest? Rest for 10 days. Su Fang had already consumed more than half of his energy. If he did not stop to recover, it would be impossible for him to continue. Outside the 10,000 spell pagoda, not only were the Yuan Tiangong geniuses shocked, but even the overgod powerhouses were shocked. Luo Xingtian, Yi Luoyang, Duanmu Renjie, and the other ancient god world geniuses all had a thick layer of haze on their faces. In addition to shock, there was also fear in their eyes. Su Fang's current strength was far beyond their imagination, and it was definitely not something they could surpass. They actually wanted to step on Su Fang's head. It was really laughable. Su Fang was destined to rise against the heavens this time, and no one could stop him. Looking at the expressions of the overgod powerhouses, Luo Xingtian and the others, especially Luo Xingtian, had an ominous feeling in their hearts. Su Fang had charged through the 10,000 spell pagoda in such a high-profile manner. If he attracted the attention of the overgod powerhouses again, and the various despicable methods he had used against Su Fang before were known by the overgod powerhouses, things would not be good. The 66th floor was already the limit that an area lord powerhouse could reach. For Su Fang to reach such a height, it meant that not only did he have the strength to confront an area lord powerhouse, but he could also seriously injure or kill an area lord powerhouse. The third heavenly layer of the Tao integration stage actually has the strength to kill an area lord powerhouse at the peak. Before Su Fangkai entered Primordius Heavenly Palace, he barely had the strength to contend with a region lord powerhouse. In a short 10,000 years, that is at most 100,000 years within the space of the flowing time array formation, and yet, he managed to reach such astonishing heights? Fortunately, it's only the 66th floor. If it were the 67th floor, only an area lord powerhouse would be able to pass it. If Su Fang's strength reaches the level of an area lord, that would be heaven-defying. Outside the 10,000 spell pagoda, whispers could be heard. "Look, Diyuan, he's about to catch up to Su Fang." Chapter 2244. After entering Yuan Tiangong, Diyuan had only challenged the 10,000 spell tower once. Moreover, he reached the height of level 45 on his first try, making all the geniuses look up to him. Originally, he did not plan on challenging the 10,000 spell tower again. To him, the 10,000 spell tower had already lost its challenge. However, this time, Su Fang surpassed him by a large margin in one move. He could no longer sit still and erupted with astonishing strength at this time. Starting from level 45, Diyuan was like a hot knife through butter, unstoppable all the way. His speed of challenging the tower was actually much faster than Su Fang's. Just as Su Fang challenged level 66, Diyuan chased after him with all his might. Practically the moment Su Fang left level 66, Diyuan arrived right behind him. Then, in the 10 days that Su Fang recovered, Diyuan easily killed the trial takers and completed level 66's test. Moreover, he did not recover and directly entered level 67. The target of the trial on level 67 was not a territorial lord, but a lord. Diyuan fought fiercely on this level for as long as a month. In the end, he also used some kind of supreme magical power and killed the lord-level trial target. However, Diyuan did not continue to challenge but left the 10,000 spell tower instead. As the imperial people had supreme magical powers to conceal their cultivation level, many geniuses were not clear about Diyuan's current cultivation level. However, those lord-level powerhouses could tell that Diyuan's cultivation level had already reached the astonishing height of 7th Firmament Dao integration. Every small step in the Dao integration realm was a world of difference in strength. Surpassing 9th Firmament Dao integration, the gap between Lord level and Dao integration was even greater, almost impossible to bridge. Diyuan could actually kill a Lord-level opponent and pass level 67 of the 10,000 spell tower with his cultivation level of 7th Firmament Dao integration. It was clear how powerful his strength was. Not only were the Yuan Tiangong geniuses shocked, but those Lord-level powerhouses also looked at Diyuan with eyes full of shock and reverence. Under the gazes of many people, Diyuan sat cross-legged in the air and swallowed medicinal pills to recover his energy. Clearly, level 67 of the 10,000 spell tower had consumed a lot of energy and had already reached his limit. Diyuan paid attention to Su Fang in the 10,000 spell tower as he recovered. The corners of his lips curled into a faint smile. QL11 at this moment, Su Fang had already entered the 67th level and was engaged in a world-shaking battle with a gray-robed old man. Inside the artifact hall, many artifact forging geniuses had already completed their artifact forging. Divine artifacts flew out of the cauldrons one after another. The treasure refinement genius ignited his true fire and took out the spirit water he had prepared beforehand. With a whoosh, he splashed the spirit water onto the divine weapon that was still burning. Streams of great pregnant purple chi that were invisible to the naked eye soared into the sky, followed by white smoke from the evaporation of the spirit water and the resplendent radiance of the divine artifact. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The divine artifact that had just been born let out a series of crisp or vigorous buzzing sounds. The higher the quality of a divine artifact, the louder the sound it made, and the more domineering the aura it emitted, suppressing other divine artifacts. Not bad at all. There are quite a few great talents in the selection of the weapon hall. Who is that person? He actually refined a peak high-grade divine artifact. In any great world, or even stellar region, this person could be called a Grandmaster. First place in this selection meet will definitely belong to him. That might not be the case. There are still many artifact forging geniuses that have yet to complete their artifact forging. It's not certain who will obtain the artifact forging geniuses. The weapon hall's artifact forging masters nodded as they commented on the divine artifacts refined by the artifact forging geniuses. So much pregnant purple chi. Su Fang used the divine might of the purple chi Dharma spirit to see the weak streams of pregnant purple chi that were produced when the divine artifacts were born. Before they could escape into the world, they flew towards Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord indeed has a purple chi Dharma spirit. Su Fang's avatar's eyes flashed with ruthlessness and decisiveness. He conjured the purple chi Dharma spirit, causing a portion of the pregnant purple chi to change direction and be absorbed into his body. This was not to snatch the pregnant purple chi, but a provocation. That's right, this was a provocation. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord looked at Su Fang as heavenly fire surged in his eyes, conjuring a terrifying illusion of burning everything in all directions. A futile attempt to snatch my purple chi Dharma spirit. Su Fang snorted inexplicably as a sharp aura surged in his heart. Then, he extended his hand towards the cauldron and grabbed a flying sword that was burning with sparks. Following that, He waved his hand to conjure spirit water that landed on the flying sword. With a chi sound, a pregnant purple chi that was richer than any other divine artifact refined by the other artifact forging geniuses was absorbed by Su Fang's purple chi dharma spirit before it could enter the world. As the white smoke and light dissipated, a flying sword with a faint purple chi appeared in front of everyone's eyes. "It's only a superior-grade divine artifact," Heavenly Fire Divine Lord snorted as he revealed a look of disdain. Su Fang was indeed extraordinary to be able to refine a superior-grade divine artifact with his avatar. However, in the artifact forging meat that was filled with talents, an ordinary superior-grade divine artifact, especially an ordinary flying sword, would not even rank in the top 10. Mo Tiangong also revealed a look of surprise. Clearly, the superior-grade divine artifact that Su Fang had refined was far below his expectations. Who knew? 1. The flying sword suddenly emitted a clear and sonorous hum as a domineering aura swept out from the sword. In an instant, the massive interior of the divine artifact immediately fell silent. All the Dharma treasures that had been refined began to tremble uncontrollably, including the superior-grade peak divine artifacts. It felt like a king had arrived and all the people had submitted to him. Immediately following that, muffled sounds came from the cauldrons. It was the divine artifacts that had yet to be born. The array formations and heaven and earth Tao palaces within the cauldrons were collapsing. Su Fang used the 9-yang divine fire, illusory fire cloud, and the world's yin-yang forces. Together with the purple chi dharma spirit and the flying sword that had been infused with the yin-yang transformation seal, he was extremely domineering. The moment his sword appeared, all divine artifacts submitted to him. The artifact hall's refinement masters on the platform all stood up as they looked at the flying sword floating in front of Su Fang in disbelief. Many artifact refinement geniuses also looked at Su Fang. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. The geniuses who had failed due to Su Fang's flying sword even forgot their heartache. They stared intently at Su Fang's flying sword as though they were looking at a creation divine artifact. Mo Tiangong roared with laughter. "There's no need for us to rank him. The number 1 artifact refinement genius is none other than Su Fang. Such an extraordinary flying sword. Although it's only superior grade, it's comparable to a supreme grade divine artifact. It's even close to a peak supreme grade divine artifact. Furthermore, Su Fang used his avatar to refine the divine artifact. Such talent in artifact refinement is something I was inferior to back then. Lord Heavenly Fire, even you were far inferior to him when you were his age." The fire god Zhu Clan's refinement master exclaimed in admiration. His words came from the bottom of his heart, but when they landed in Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's ears, they were extremely grating. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord snorted coldly. "It's only a superior-grade divine artifact after all. What qualifications does he have to be called the number 1 artifact refinement genius?" Mo Tiangong asked perplexed. Su Fang's divine artifact has overwhelmed everyone. If he isn't number 1, who would dare claim to be number 1? Lord Heavenly Fire, you have been biased against Su Fang from the beginning. Could it be that he has offended you in the past? What qualifications does a low-level existence have to offend me? Heavenly Fire Divine Lord sneered domineeringly as he scoffed at Su Fang. The Zhu clan's refinement master said in a deep voice, "If Su Fang does not obtain first place, I'll be the first to disagree." Some of the other artifact refinement masters supported Mo Tiangong and the Zhu clan's refinement master, but most of them remained silent. Everyone present was a top artifact refinement master from the various worlds. It would be laughable if they could not even determine the quality of a Dharma treasure. Su Fang's flying sword was clearly better than everyone else's, but since Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was so insistent, no one could say a word. At that moment, a genius suddenly shouted, "Su Fang, if your Dharma treasure can beat mine, I'll admit that you are number 1. This person was the first genius to refine a superior-grade divine artifact. Furthermore, he had refined a cauldron that was extremely difficult to refine. He originally believed that the #1 spot in the artifact refining meat would be his, but who knew that he would be suppressed by a superior-grade flying sword? Furthermore, the artifact refinement masters of the artifact hall were prepared to award Su Fong as #1. He was naturally unconvinced. Without waiting for Su Fong to answer, the artifact refinement genius swept out a black cauldron that whistled towards Su Fong. Rumble! Boom! Boom! Terrifying thunder rumbled from the cauldron as bolts of lightning flashed out. They rapidly condensed into a lightning ball the size of a washbasin. A terrifying might that could destroy nature enveloped Su Fong. It was no wonder the genius was so confident. He had refined a superior-grade divine artifact that could release lightning dharma. If nothing went wrong, he would definitely be #1 at the artifact hall selection meet. The artifact refinement genius shouted coldly, "The cauldron I refined is called the Annihilation Lightning Cauldron. It can annihilate the heaven and earth. As for you, you have only refined a superior-grade flying sword. Are you worthy of competing with me for #1? This cauldron isn't bad, but unfortunately, it has a short lifespan." Su Fong gave a nonchalant smile as he released the might of a Dharma treasure, activating the flying sword. Chi! Chi! The flying sword shot out, transforming into 2 sword beams, one black and one white. Mysterious purple gas lingered around them as they collided with the lightning ball released by the Annihilation Lightning Cauldron. The expected explosion did not happen. With a poochie sound, the lightning ball was shattered by the black and white sword beams. It rapidly disintegrated, and the astounding lightning dharma instantly vanished. However, the black and white sword beams did not lose their might. They swept past the Annihilation Lightning Cauldron before returning to Su Fong and transforming back into a flying sword. The Annihilation Lightning Cauldron shook uncontrollably as if it had encountered the most terrifying existence. It was then taken back by the artifact refinement genius. Taking a closer look, the artifact refinement genius exclaimed, "What kind of flying sword is that? Not only can it easily dissolve the lightning dharma released by the Annihilation Lightning Cauldron, it can also devour the luck and spirituality of the Lightning Cauldron." The artifact refinement masters on the high platform and the artifact refinement geniuses below were in an uproar. Breaking the attack of a divine artifact and devouring its luck and spirituality. What kind of domineering ability was that? Although my flying sword is only superior grade, I have infused a strand of purple Chi Dharma spirit into it. I have also infused the simplified yin-yang transformation seal into it. Therefore, it has the purple Chi Dharma spirit and the supreme might of the yin-yang transformation. Let alone a high-grade god artifact, even a peak extreme-grade god artifact, or even a king-grade god artifact, can't compete with it. Chapter 2245. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord had an indifferent expression. He looked like a dead man with no expression. His eyes were empty, like ashes after a fire. Su Fong revealed a look of mockery. "Lord Heavenly Fire, that day at Alpha Hall, you said that it was impossible for me to refine a superior-grade divine artifact. Now, does Lord Heavenly Fire still believe that my divine artifact was refined by someone else?" Heavenly Fire Divine Lord said loftily, "How can a punk like you be so arrogant in front of me? The divine artifact you refined is only superior grade. What qualifications do you have to obtain first place in the artifact hall selection?" It's still the same words. If I say your divine artifact is incompetent, then you are incompetent. I have the final say in the artifact hall. Su Fong revealed a domineering smile as he shouted loudly, "Lord Heavenly Fire, do you really think I care about being first place? Justice is in everyone's heart. Whether my divine artifact gets first place or not is not up to you. You may be able to hide the truth from everyone in the artifact hall, but you can't hide it from everyone's eyes or mouth. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's expression was livid. His eyes burned with terrifying heavenly fire once again. I participated in the Artifact Hall's selection to let everyone see the true colors of the so-called number 1 Artifact Refinement Master. Su Fangda bellowed. Everyone was immediately in an uproar. In order to earn points, I refined divine artifacts to sell at Alpha Hall. However, Lord Heavenly Fire said that it was impossible for me to refine a superior grade divine artifact. He got Alpha Hall to reject my divine artifacts, cutting off my means of earning merit points. A refinement master under Heavenly Fire Divine Lord let out a thunderous roar. What sort of figure is Lord Heavenly Fire? Why would he use such a method to target you? You think too highly of yourself. It's truly laughable. Everyone else also revealed looks of disbelief. Su Fang continued, the reason is simple. Lord Heavenly Fire has taken a fancy to a supreme treasure of mine and wants to take it from me. Shut up. How can I allow you to slander me? Heavenly Fire Divine Lord bellowed angrily as a fiery divine might with the destructive aura of the heavenly Tao swept out. It enveloped Su Fang and was about to kill Su Fang. Su Fang remained motionless as he looked at Heavenly Fire Divine Lord with eyes filled with mockery. Heavenly Fire, you're so impressive. Could it be that you're in the Yuan Tiangong and want to kill the peerless geniuses of the Yuan Tiangong? You have to ask my Tao Protector first. A heavenly might suddenly descended, rapidly condensing into the shadow of Empyrean Sang Chio's Yuan soul. The terrifying aura of an Empyrean immediately swept away Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's divine might. Many thanks, Your Highness. Su Fang cupped his fists and bowed to Emperor Sang Chio. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord revealed a look of horror as he hurriedly bowed. He never expected that Empyrean sage Sang Chio would personally come for Su Fang's avatar. All of the Artifact Hall's artifact forging masters and artifact forging geniuses inside the divine artifact bowed while trembling. Empyrean sage Sang Chio ignored them as his voice resounded in Su Fang's mind. Su Fang, your scheming is comparable to your talent and strength. You sure have guts to use me again. Su Fang's true body had already reached the 67th level of the 10,000 spell pagoda, attracting the attention of countless experts. How could Empyrean sage Sang Chio not notice? 10,000 years of oblivion. His goal of entering the 10,000 spell pagoda in such a high-profile manner was to attract the attention of Empyrean sages. Only by borrowing the power of Empyrean sages could he ruthlessly retaliate against Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and the others. Although it was only Su Fang's avatar that was participating in the Artifact Hall selection, if he were to be killed by Heavenly Fire Divine Lord, how would the Yuan Tiangong have any face left? The Yuan Tiangong was built to nurture geniuses. If a peerless genius like Su Fang were to suffer such injustice within the Yuan Tiangong, how could the other geniuses not feel bitterly disappointed? How could they accept it? Therefore, Empyrean sage Sang Chio had no choice but to take action. Even if he did not, the other Yuan Tiangong experts would have to stop him. Empyrean sages were extremely powerful existences. How could Empyrean sage Sang Chio not see through Su Fang's scheming? However, Empyrean sage Sang Chio seemed to be reprimanding Su Fang, but he was actually praising him. After all, a person's strength was limited. If one did not know how to take advantage of others when they were weak, they would die very quickly. No matter how strong one's talent and strength were, how could one reach the peak without scheming and shrewdness? Lord Heavenly Fire, let's make things clear in front of Empyrean sage Sang Chio. Su Fang looked at Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Suddenly, an astonishing purple gas erupted from his body. An astonishing power that could control magic treasures, and even heaven and earth instantly swept out in all directions. Buzz, 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 buzz. The magic treasures that had just been refined by the refining geniuses trembled and submitted to the power of the purple gas Dharma spirit. This treasure of mine is called the purple gas Dharma spirit. It was formed by absorbing a large amount of great pregnant purple gas. It has accompanied me from the small world until now and is equivalent to my life. However, Lord Heavenly Fire wants to steal it from me. How can I agree to that? Su Fang's words shocked everyone. They looked at Su Fang with sparkling eyes. Especially the refining masters, who often dealt with magic treasures and more or less knew about the great pregnant purple gas. They were immediately shocked. Many people's first thought was to take the supreme treasure, the purple gas Dharma spirit, for themselves. However, when they saw Empyrean sage Sang Chio, their greed was immediately extinguished. Lord Heavenly Fire is an over-God expert, the #1 refining master in the universe. He knows that I have the purple gas Dharma spirit and wants it from me. After I refused, he used his power to pressure me and tried to force me out of the Yuan Tiangong. Once I leave the Yuan Tiangong, Lord Heavenly Fire will definitely kill me and steal my treasure. Not only did Su Fang publicly reveal the purple gas Dharma spirit, but he also revealed Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's scheme. It immediately caused an uproar. Mo Tiangong was stunned. How can Su Fang reveal such a peerless treasure to the world? Then, he saw Empyrean sage Sang Chio look at Su Fang with eyes full of admiration. He immediately understood. Su Fang is indeed smart. Since Heavenly Fire knew that he had the purple gas Dharma spirit, the secret would be exposed sooner or later. It was naturally difficult to keep it a secret. Now that Su Fang had publicly revealed it, it was equivalent to completely extinguishing the greed of Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and everyone else. Su Fang's shocking performance in the 10,000 spell pagoda was enough to prove his strength. When the celestial worthy mountain opened, Su Fang would definitely be one of the peerless geniuses that entered. How could a peerless existence in the Yuan Tiangong cause him any harm? Luo Xingtian's targeting of Su Fang was a test for Su Fang. The higher-ups in the Yuan Tiangong would not pay attention to it. Instead, they would deliberately set up some tests to train Su Fang. If an expert like Heavenly Fire tried to target Su Fang, it would be far beyond the scope of training. If Heavenly Fire dared to attack Su Fang, what awaited him would be the most severe punishment from the peerless existence in the Yuan Tiangong. Even the Empyrean sage behind Heavenly Fire would not be able to protect him. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord naturally would not admit it. He gritted his teeth and snorted, "Nonsense. You can slander me however you want. Whether it's slander or not, you know in your heart. I'm not participating in the artifact refining selection this time to enter the artifact hall, nor for the generous rewards. I want to tell you that although I, Su Fang, come from a lowly background and have no background, I'm definitely not an ant that you can bully. You want to step on Su Fang's head? Don't even think about it." Su Fang shouted domineeringly. Then, he cupped his fists towards Emperor Sang Chio. He put away the divine artifact he had just refined and left the inner world of the divine artifact. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was trembling with anger. Many artifact refining grandmasters in the artifact hall looked at Heavenly Fire with sympathy. He, the #1 artifact refining grandmaster in the universe, had lost all face this time. His old face had been slapped to a pulp by a young man. Emperor Sang Chio said indifferently, "Heavenly Fire, I don't think you are suitable for the position of Artifact Hall Master. What do you think?" Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's body trembled before he calmed down. He cupped his fists and said, "I've always been focused on refining artifacts and have no interest in the Artifact Hall. I was planning to resign from the position of Artifact Hall Master after the artifact refining selection." After saying that, Heavenly Fire Divine Lord left in embarrassment. Emperor Sang Chio looked at Mo Tiangong and company. Let the Artifact Hall selection continue. After Emperor Sang Chio left, Mo Tiangong said to the Zhu clan's artifact refining Grandmaster, I think Su Fang should take first place in this selection. Grandmaster, what do you think? The Zhu clan elder nodded and said, Su Fang deserves first place. Many Grandmasters agreed. None of the other artifact refining geniuses made a sound. It was time for the results of the Pill Pagoda's selection to be revealed. Many geniuses had completed their refinement and their pills had been taken away. There were very few who had yet to complete their refinement. The Duanmu Divine Clan Elder counted the time with his fingers. There was still 5 minutes left before it ended. However, Su Fang had yet to refine his pills. He could not help but snort coldly. This kid really treats the Pill Pagoda selection as a joke. How serious is the Pill Pagoda's selection? Once the selection is over, I'll definitely report this to the upper echelons of Yuan Tiangong and punish him severely. Suddenly, Su Fang shot some spiritual water into the divine cauldron. Chi! A white, fragrant cloud rose from the divine cauldron and disappeared. Just as Su Fang was about to grab the pill out of the divine cauldron, a pill shot out from the divine cauldron. Before Su Fang could react, and before he could even see the appearance of the pill clearly, the pill actually escaped into nothingness and disappeared without a trace. Su Fang was shocked and stunned. He had never expected that the pill he had refined would escape on its own. Spirit Accumulation Pill. The Duanmu Divine Clan Elder stood up abruptly. His eyes were filled with shock and excitement. The other alchemy grandmasters also stood up. Just as the Duanmu Divine Clan Elder was about to use his divine ability to grab the pill that had escaped, a thunderous sound rang out from the void. A surge of heavenly tribulation energy swept out from the void. The pill that had escaped was forced out of the void by the heavenly tribulation energy and appeared in the air. Rumble! Terrifying thunder rumbled in the air. A 1-mile-wide heavenly tribulation cloud rolled and condensed. Heavenly Tribulation Divine Pill. He has refined a Heavenly Tribulation Divine Pill. The old man from the Duanmu Divine Clan exclaimed in surprise. His eyes shone brightly as he looked at the pill.